Welcome to the lab, everybody. I'm your host, Joshua Diaz. We got a great show for you tonight, great guests, and I'm very honored to have them as they are busy folks. We have Chris Mcdonough of the Interview Room. As most of you know, we have John Lamb, author and retired homicide detective. Also, I believe you're in the military as well. And both of them, I believe, are Padres fans.
We don't hold it against you that you are a traitor to the San Francisco Giants.
Well, I was telling you guys before that, I watched the Giants faithfully, and for the first time, I witnessed them start an inning without a right fielder. And they're a really bad team. But I used to coach Little League. And that used to happen all the time with the kids, I can't find my glove. I got to go pee. And, and I was like, okay, so that's where we're at right now is we're in the cellar at the beginning of the season, and the Padres are good. So I'll keep my mouth shut for the most part, and maybe we'll turn it around a little bit. Dr. Gary will be joining us. He's probably avoiding being mugged on the B train on the way home right now, and he does a very good job of that. But although a couple kids got him one time, it was one of the funniest stories I've ever heard.
They mugged him.
They tried to take his phone or something like that, and he got. I don't think they were able to do it, but he was something along those lines. It was like a 12-year-old.
Too bad there wasn't a way to, if somebody grabs your phone and starts running, like the bicycle thefts, where they electrify the bike and then they press the button. Have you seen those videos? They're hysterical.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I have seen that. Those
are. They have one for the phone,
right? Or they tie it to like a post or something, and they only get so far. Chris,
go ahead.
The other night,
what do you call a 12-year-old mugger in New York? Old timer.
Exactly.
The other night, Dr. Gary and I, we did a show about the Long Island serial killer, and then we took some phone calls, and I've been getting grief about this since it happened, but Dr. Gary wanted to read a poem, and for some reason, in a moment of weakness, I started laughing during the right at the end of the poem and right after it, and I felt bad, but
was it Gary's poem?
No, it was somebody else's.
Okay.
But yeah, I started laughing, and I don't know what happened. I still to this moment don't know exactly what happened, but I felt really bad about it. But it was a nice poem. But people were like, "Why is he laughing? Dr. Gary's a distinguished human," and it's like, yeah, I get it. My
The
apologies.
optimal word there is human.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
if you only knew the things that Dr. Gary does laugh at.
Right. That's what I was trying to say. But anyway, it was unfortunate. I felt bad about it, but it was a great show nonetheless. So but anyway, how you guys doing today? John, good to see you. Thank you for being here.
It's really my pleasure to be here. It's a little warm here today in the Shenandoah Valley for April, 88 degrees. And the pollen is so thick you could cut it with machete. But I'm doing great. Looking forward. It's an honor always to be with you on this program, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And Chris, I'm sure you've been going 100 miles an hour and got a lot going on. And how are you doing?
You know, when you're at the end of a rope, you tie a knot and you hang on. You swing if the wind comes, and you let go if there's water underneath you.
Yeah.
And so
Wow.
some days are pretty rocking. Today was a rocking day.
How's the weather?
Oh man, it was great today. High of 80
Yeah, that's perfect. That's
where I
perfect.
live. Part of the
Yeah.
country.
Out there, yeah.
Yeah. So I was talking to John a little bit about this before we get into our main discussion, and we'll talk about the goings on of the Nancy Guthrie case, because it was being reported that part of the DNA samples, there was some hair involved, and I'd like to get your thoughts about that as well, you guys, because I know you've dealt with, I'm sure, mitochondrial DNA and things like that before. So I'm very interested to hear what you have to say. I was wondering if either one of you had heard about the incident. There's Dr. Gary. Incident in the Bahamas, with I believe their last name is, I don't know the guy's name, but his last name's Hooker, and that stood out to me. But have you had a chance to look at that at all?
Yeah, I have. I mean, I actually had a case. His name is Scott Tower. It was two guys go out fishing and one guy comes back, and his body floated up in the harbor, and it got hit by a jet skier. And it was at the same time we had another guy go off the pier. I don't know if you remember that one, Johnny. His name was Carbajal. We called him Carpahal.
Yep.
Not that there's dark humor in homicide, but anyway, he went off the edge of the pier, and so we had two simultaneously in the water.
We used to call them bobs.
Yeah.
Because they bob in the water.
Right. Well, that makes sense.
And unfortunately, the good news for us is we had Scripps Oceanography right there in San Diego. So my partner and I at the time, and it was actually Dan Aarons and I worked that case. And we ran down to Scripps, and we got all of the current and tide charts, and we had them give an estimate as to where they believe the body would surface. And sure enough, about 10, 11 days later, he comes popping up.
Yeah.
And it was right around where they said he would.
They had that happened in the Riley Strain case. I don't know if you remember that one, when he was in Tennessee leaving a bar, and it was ruled that he fell in, that he was intoxicated and fell in. And that wasn't obviously the first time that had happened in that area. And they said that usually it takes about 6 to 7 days or so for the body to sort of surface near, they had this kind of spot, like you said, and that's what happened. I mean, is that something is that, it's hard to say, without knowing the waters there, but the Bahamas are, seems like pretty crystal clear water down there, and they weren't very far out at all.
Yeah, John, I mean, the body's going to surface.
unless,
it's not there.
yeah. I mean, I agree with you. If she went in there, and unencumbered by anything, yeah, it's got to come up at some point. And I'm certain, I would assume that they would have already consulted the local oceanographers there to get some sense.
Yeah. Well, they're saying that it's obviously, like, the husband who they detained him for, I believe, 4 to 5 days. It was the longest that they could hold him while he was being questioned. And then that ran out. And then so they they had to release him under the law. And as soon as he was released, he said that he wanted to get out so he could go search, and he hopped a flight home. So that was
sort of like OJ looking for the killers on the golf course.
It's funny that you say that, because yesterday when I was talking about that's sort of what the chat was alluding to, and how he moved out of LA because he didn't want to run into the killer. And I was always thinking that's weird, because he had coffee with the killer, breakfast, lunch, dinner.
Anytime he was in a room with a mirror.
Yeah, that's right. He put the guy's socks on for him, all kinds of stuff. But
It's
yeah,
the
anyway,
buddy.
look at him. Look at that power stance.
What are you doing, nut job? You see how he's like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
He said, take me on, buddy.
he's
Take me on. Look at he's
so
ready.
anyway, one of the things about that case was that the biggest, well, I'm sure there's a bunch more, but one of the biggest red flags is that he said that he fired off his flares, and they said that they found all the flares, that none of them were fired off. So it's just, his story is not adding up, and I fear without a body, it's going to be hard to prosecute that kind of a case.
And even if they do find a body, what level of degradation has occurred? And he is, now I'm certain his argument would be for leaving the area was, they already wrongly arrested me, and I don't want to be there if they decide to pin this on me. I mean, he could come up with what on the face of it would be a reasonable explanation for why he left.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm sure. Well, I think the reasonable explanation was that his mom's sick. His mom's sick and his wife's missing. So I don't know which one takes precedent, but bad situation for anybody to be in. Who knows? It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But it's not looking. I think I'm sure it's a recovery mission, and which is always, just a terrible thing. So anyway, let's move on. We'll talk about the Nancy Guthrie. You guys had a great show about it the other day, and Chris, you sent me that article. I was having lunch the other day. You sent me that article when they were talking about me being on your show.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, about my theory of why nobody's come forward. And I didn't know that, like, about 12 different places picked up on it.
Man, I needed to get your autograph.
I was shocked that there was that many articles went up about it, and it was very cool. And I want to say thank you, for allowing me to come on the show. And
never no need. Don't ever worry about it, Josh. I mean, you're a good guy, and however I can help, that's the way I roll. I
appreciate you. Yeah, I appreciate it. It was funny because when you sent it to me, I didn't know what I was looking at, and I started reading it, and I text you back, go, hey, look, that's me. And it was a nice write up, and it was very complimentary to your show as well. But it shows that you're kind of, when it comes to podcasts, you guys are, at the top, leading the way in covering this case. And John, you're a big part of that as well. And
well, thank you.
Yes, he
so
does.
it's been great. And yep, we're getting close to 50,000 subscribers. I think we just hit 46 over here, so we're well on our way. And a lot of that has to do with, you guys and Dr. Gary. Also, so I certainly appreciate Appreciate that. So it's being reported now that we're talking about the Nancy Guthrie investigation, that some DNA is being sent to Quantico for further analysis, further investigation. And it sounds like there's hair that had been collected, and Brian Enton is reporting on this. And Dr. Gary did a spot on Enton, I believe, yesterday. Did, fantastic job, as always. And like I said, he'll be in here shortly. So is this? It sounds like they've always had it from the jump. It's just that nobody knew that. What does that change, Chris? Does that change anything?
The hair?
Yeah.
It's hard to say. I mean, if obviously if it's an unknown source, then yeah, that could be a game changer. If it's well, you would expect that, what we would call, you'd expect that there. Okay. And, then that builds in an automatic, well, yeah, no kidding. I've been over that house 150 times.
Yeah, you only found one?
Yeah, you only got one? Right. And so that, there's no value to that. There's no evidentiary value at that point. I recall one time, I think even, do you guys remember when Nonads said we have other DNA and it would be what, we got Nancy's DNA on the porch and there's other DNA and you would expect it to have been there. Remember when he said that or something like that?
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Wait, well, what was that all about? That was all about, and I guess we can take a guess that was, those around her circle of influence that they found in there. So we don't know if that hair is in that bucket right now.
Yeah. Well, so, they're talking about the mixed, we don't know if that's part of the mixed DNA or not. I mean, obviously a hair wouldn't be mixed DNA, but it would need a root, correct?
Well, it all depends. It could, what if it, I don't want to be gross, but it could be a pube.
Sure. No, of course.
And if that's the case, then that goes back to theory number one, that now we have to start looking at the type of personalities that do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I was thinking about it. It's very interesting, all the dynamics that are going on in down there in Arizona, because they want the sheriff out badly. The union does, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that want him out. But I don't think that furthers the investigation. I mean, I think that ship has probably sailed. What do you think, John?
I would think that focusing on removing him via a recall motion, or I'm not saying that I wouldn't do it, but what I am saying is maybe all of these people need, if they're focusing on this, they might want to look for Nancy. And to throw, at this point, the organization is attempting to basically limp forward after a series of self-inflicted gunshot wounds to the feet by this guy's, his statements and his need to be, like the female star from Sunset Boulevard, I'm waiting for my close-up.
All right.
They need to get the organization focused more thoroughly on this. There's always time, particularly since he appears to have withdrawn from the spotlight for now. Although, mind you, if they identify a suspect, he'll be right there. The primary focus, at least within the sheriff's department, should be, let us solve this case.
Yeah, and if there's you know, how does hair get there when you see this guy on the porch with, you know, covered up, he's got gloves on and all this stuff? Well, the next logical step is, okay, then what's the interior of the crime scene telling us, right? Is there a struggle and she reaches up and, you know, hypothetically pulls his mask off, or, you know, grabs him and, you know, scratches him and tries to, you know, and she ends up with something that she gets a handful of hair and transfers it some, you know, it drops and all this other stuff. And so, you know, there's a lot behind the scenes that we don't have that information, that data on yet. But, you know, you have to ask yourself, okay, if this guy's in there for 41 minutes, there's going to be more than just hair if he's transferring stuff like that.
Yeah, and physically engaged with the victim and whatever else may have occurred in that room.
Yeah.
There should be more than a hair.
Yeah, and without being too graphic, I mean, we don't know exactly. We don't know anything what occurred in that the house. They say that the scene was sort of undisturbed for the most part, whatever that means, and that's, to me, that's up for interpretation, just depending on who you are and how you look, at certain things. I mean, I'm sure that you guys could have a different a different view of that depending on what you saw there. But unfortunately, it's not that uncommon for older people to be assaulted sexually, in their home. And I'm not saying that that's what happened, but if it is, you would think that there would be, a lot more to go on and hopefully get this solved. And, I pray to God that nothing like that happened. Whatever has happened is bad enough. Like I said, only what we know, that she's gone and that somebody has taken her, that's bad enough. But the details could certainly get worse. And, that's sort of what we're, hoping that doesn't happen. But I just don't see, I just don't see a good ending here at all, Chris. I mean, how do you feel?
Oh, no. I mean, there's evidence that she was injured. There's evidence, there's blood. It's her blood. So that tells us this isn't a good guy. If you got an 84-year-old woman who's bleeding, and you may have been the contributor to cause that bleeding, then that tells you all you need to know right there about whoever this individual is. And, now if there is, remember, Nonad says, yeah, there's other biological stuff that we sent off to the lab. Not this show, but go lab rats. And, from there, they probably extracted it to a certain point. Okay. Meaning they pulled out whatever they needed to pull out of the roots or whatever it is. Right. And so now they need to send it out to Quantico for some additional, testing where they'll degrade it, they'll grind it, they'll cut it down. And basically what they do is the hair, they almost dissolve it completely. Now, here's the point. How many do they have? Because the defense is going to say, number one, when did you collect it? If it was after they shut the house down or they gave the house back, that hair may not ever come into court.
Yep. And the thing is, and the other thing is that the defense will want the opportunity to conduct their own tests. Yep. And if you've used up your single hair, that becomes another area for the defense to attack the prosecution's case. Now, you said something, you mentioned, hoping for or concerned that there was going to be a good or decent outcome. I'm going to be frank, Josh. I've done this long enough that when this story broke, I did not believe that there was going to be a good outcome. I just, in my bones, I really wish I was wrong about that. And I hope to God I am wrong about that. But, and I'm certain, I'm not going to speak for Chris, but, our friend Dan Aaron's the detective. He was of the same opinion. There's instantly our sense is whatever happened quickly.
Right. Yeah. I think that you're right about that. Has it surprised either of you that this has gone on as long as it has, or, as investigators, is this something do you think that's kind of, this is kind of on par for an investigation of this kind? Because obviously we live in a world where we want instant gratification and we want things solved, in a day or two. And most of the time that doesn't happen. We're 70 something days into this, over, close to 2 months, or if not over, but no, over 2 months now. But what do you think? I mean, is this a time frame that baffles you, or no?
It doesn't bother me personally. I mean, what bothers me is, the old saying, right? The first 48. Okay. I mean, you have some time where that is where you're going to get the majority of your lock. You're going to lock your statements in. You're going to get a lot of the information that if somebody is involved in something, they're going to try to, play games. And that's when usually the chess match starts. And you have to be Akamai, you have to be smart enough, and you have to have your head on a swivel to know, okay, what do I need to get here real fast before this thing blasts out of, left field. And I'll give you an example. I worked John's case where he, had to, unfortunately, he had a guy coming at him with a sword. And I immediately sensed that narrative was going to be really important. So I ran over to where he lived and interviewed all the neighbors. And one of the neighbors goes, yeah, the guy runs around the complex with a sword. Okay. Or something to that effect. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was enough to say, you're done. John, do you remember, John, what that statement was?
Well, the sword was, he had previously attempted to eliminate his ex-wife and infant with the sword.
That's right. I interviewed the
And he had, here's a shocker. He wasn't put in jail because they said, well, he's mentally ill. And so they let him out. And so what he went after me with a butcher knife. And yes, you actually, and you may not remember this, Chris, you actually talked with the ex-wife.
Yeah.
You in the DA's office, and she basically described him as a lunatic. And, who's he tried to do, this time? And so you jump on that. And I will also say one thing regarding the time element. Let's bifurcate the issue there, Josh. I believe the scene was mishandled. You have a junior guy who's never investigated a crime of this scope before. So that may have put them significantly behind the power curve. On the other hand, I've worked murder cases where it took 6 months to identify the suspect. And you just keep working. And this is where people assume homicide guys are like brilliant and everything. The best homicide guys are just dogged and stubborn and refuse to give up.
You're muted, Josh.
You're muted.
Yeah, I've sort of noticed that there's a lot of just gumshoe, old school detective work seems to be the way a lot of the times, because I know now, people. Well, Dr. Gary's here. Hold on. that go by. There he is.
Hey, Gary.
Gary,
Hi,
good to see
sorry,
you.
what a night.
Not a problem at all.
Hello,
The
darling.
we we were hoping you didn't get mugged on.
I heard you about the 12-year-old. You left out the part that the reason that the kid didn't was because I had to talk with him and tried to rehabilitate him.
Yeah, but that makes the story nice and not funny.
But it's true. I asked him why he felt he had to mug me. I would have been happy to give him money to eat.
No, I know. Well,
That would have been no fun.
I know you left that part out.
of course you did. Well, I didn't leave it out. I did leave it out. I absolutely left it out. So, Dr. Gare, we were just, I saw you comment. We were talking about, the hair. Now that, they're talking that Brian Enton is reported. And by the way, saw you on Enton. We watched it here on the lab. Great job. We like I said, I was like a proud brother watching you. And I thought you did good. You always do so good. But
but all that info you could have. That was like the abbreviated version of the long conversation we had on the interview room.
Yeah, right. Well, no, absolutely, and we can talk a little bit about that. But what was your reaction to the hair possibility or the DNA that's being sent to Quantico for further testing, and also that there is hair DNA that's being tested as well. We mentioned sexual assault, and you're staunchly, you do not believe that
That's what I
happened.
said in the interview with both Chris and then
Yeah, you don't, but that changes nothing either.
I don't think that there's a sexual element to this case. That's what the whole point of the discussion about probabilities is, that's like lowest on the likelihood list for a lot of reasons we could get into if you want to. Is it possible? Yeah, but very low on the list. If you're just going on probabilities, it's improbable. But look, the hair could come from anywhere. But don't you guys think that this is probably the same sample that originally got sent to Florida?
It could be, yeah.
They're like, and Quantico's like, let us have a crack at it, kind of a thing. I mean, or do you think, did they find another sample that's separate from the one that went to Florida?
No, it sounds as though that this was the sample from Florida, and that now it's going to the FBI for further analysis, which is sort of concerning because DNA kind of, is finite and degrades every time you test it. And that, maybe it should have gone to Quantico first and foremost.
You might have saved 70 days. Who knows?
Well, do you think that that's what should have happened, John? Do you think that it should have went there?
It should have.
John is so
you're working with the FBI. It's a top lab. You're not going to pay for it. To this day, I do not understand what the sheriff's reasoning was, because if I had DNA and I had a private lab I was going to pay for, or I had access to Quantico, it's a no-brainer. You send it to Quantico. I don't understand what the rationale is, and I think I'd be frightened if I did understand it.
Well, Chris, what do you think Nonads' reasoning for this is? And let me just throw my 2 cents in there, since this is so early on in the investigation. I truly think that he was going to grandstand this whole thing, and that, we're going to find, we're going to get a suspect. We're going to get this thing solved quick. And now that hasn't happened, it's coming back to bite him in the butt. And now he's sort of hiding out, saying, on a radio show, well, I'm not really in charge. Like, I'm not the lead investigator. I oversee the investigation. Yet he's out there giving public addresses like this is his shining moment. I think he was trying to keep people out of the loop. I think he thought maybe that there was information that he didn't want out there. He didn't want to share it with other people. That's my thought. But I think that's why he did that, and it makes no logistical sense whatsoever.
I can't disagree with anything you said. You just related there. I mean, it's just from the very beginning, this whole thing, and we just did a whole show about it last night. And within 2 or 3 days, when I, came up on this thing, I said, okay, there are 2 trains here. And they've both left the station at the same time. And then we had the panel, and everybody on the panel said, yeah, we agree. Okay? Because we've been behind the scenes and the receivers of these egomaniacs who, are just concerned about, the next campaign or whatever the scenario is going to be, right? Nancy Guthrie just becomes a platform, a political platform. And when the FBI got involved, i.e. through Savannah, through the senator, he said, no, thanks, we don't need you. And he pushed him aside. And that started a bunch of hoo-ha, I'll guarantee it, behind the scenes. Now, everybody can say, well, how do you know that? I'm going to say, well, how do you not know that?
Right.
We've been the receivers of it. I've been the receiver of it. We've worked with administrators who they literally are waiting for the opportunity to jump in front of a camera and go, we did it, when in fact, the best thing they could do is just stay out of our way. There's just a bunch of law enforcement administrators who are always looking for the opportunity to grab a headline, to increase, to increase their chances for promotion. And as I said on Chris's show, and I'll say here, many of the people we worked for who were lieutenants and captains had never investigated a homicide in their entire career.
Right.
And so they're really probably, I would be fascinated to find out whether the sheriff has ever investigated, that he's been the case agent or lead detective in a case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just 2 seconds to tie it up. The fact that there were 2 trains leaving. Okay, you had the Bitcoin thing starting to happen, and then you had the quote, this is a crime scene thing starting to happen with Pima County. We know that something happened. And so I called my homicide guys out. The moment that happened, what people have to understand is Pima County, they were the captain on the aircraft. That sheriff was the captain in the aircraft that said, okay, you can stay on the aircraft or you can get off the aircraft, and I don't care either way. So which one is it? And so the feds, if you'll notice, look at the first couple of press conferences. There was no federal people there.
Right.
Yeah.
In the back, the screen is empty. And next thing you know, a senator weighs in, and you've got one FBI guy the next day. And then on the next press conference, you've got 2 FBI guys. But read what their statements were very carefully. We're here to assist, and this is what we will do. CAS team, BAU, blah, blah, blah. And they went down the list. Okay. Well, that is Nonads going like this. Yay. Okay. You're right. You're in my house. I'm not in your house. Okay. And because they had no jurisdiction, they still don't. I know that's hard to believe. The FBI has no jurisdiction in this investigation. 0. Because it happened inside that house in the county of Pima in Arizona, unless they can find a federal nexus, i.e., they have proof that she went over the lines or that this was, a situation that you know, they can definitely say, yeah, her body's in California.
And then it's their case.
No, not necessarily. It could be where the body is found in California.
Gotcha.
Okay. Whoever, whatever jurisdiction that, I mean, I'm using that as a hypothetical.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if it's Mexico, it still doesn't necessarily turn over to the FBI unless Pima County says, here, go, it's yours. Okay. And, you know, that's how it typically works. And the problem that we had, and we still have it, unfortunately, is you got animosity between the sheriff and the feds. You can see it, you can feel it. I mean, think about it. Who released the video of the guy on the porch? It wasn't Pima County Sheriff. It was Cash Patel. That was a punch in the eye to the sheriff. I mean, think about that.
Yeah, that's true.
He didn't get on the phone and say, hey, I want you to take my glory and I want you to release that video. No, that's not what happened. The feds found it in Quantico. They called up their boss, Cash, and said, hey, we've got video of this guy. And he said, great, give me a copy. I'm going to release it on Twitter. One tweet, it was out, Cash Patel.
Yeah.
And you know the phone rang at the sheriff's office after the moment he pressed tweet, he picked up the phone and said, hey, I just want to give you a heads up. We got video and we just put it out there. Am I right or wrong, John?
Yeah, I'm certain that there was no heads up call. The thing is that if you start out taking an adversarial attitude toward the FBI, when there's so much that they can bring aboard that can support you, when you rebuff the offer, well, you've set the tenor for what happens next. Because again, we've got warring egos. And that is one of the most distressing things about this, is that we have egomaniacs above, and they seem to have lost sight of the fact that an 84-year-old woman was abducted from her home. And so I just find it morally repugnant.
And we see it all the time, Josh. I mean,
Yeah.
let's, if the public, right, if we all, because we're all the public, look what happened with Brian Kohlberger. Who processed that scene? The Idaho State Police.
Yeah, Moscow.
And their lab.
Yeah.
Well, the FBI was there.
They were.
Why didn't they call in their evidence response team like they did in Idaho for Chad Daybell's backyard? Because that chief up there for Chad Daybell didn't care. He wanted it done right. Okay. But the Idaho State Police, that's a budget item. We're going to do this one, boys, gals. Line up.
Well, you know, when this story is written, you know, many years down the road, it will sort of be like the beginning of this will be, you know, that there was a sheriff's office that was in turmoil pre Nancy Guthrie going missing. And, you know, there had already been like a no confidence vote. There had been struggles with the union. The sheriff barely won the election, which, you know, that's whatever. That's, you know, but then this worldwide case descends on this county and shines a light on everything that had been going on, and, you know, has been going on for the past, you know, however long, and it's more dysfunctional than any of us have thought. I mean, they're actively trying to get rid of Nanos. Now he's facing ethics committees where he has to answer for his resume, and if he doesn't respond to them, or if he doesn't give answers that are acceptable, they have the means to expel him from his position. But like I said, I just don't think that really furthers the invest. I just don't think that now that there's somebody else is in charge. I'm not saying that the investigation couldn't get cleaned up a little bit more, but the toothpaste doesn't go back in the tube, man. I mean, it seems
that's a myth. If you think the FBI is in charge, it is a myth.
Well, I don't think they are.
Okay. Yeah.
No, I never thought that they are, but if they were to turn it over, say now, they could turn everything over. Is that correct, John, that they could turn everything over to the FBI right now?
I don't see how you could abrogate responsibility. The crimes are major felony crimes under the Arizona code. And what would be your pretext? What is it you could point to and say, this is the violation of federal law? And I would say, just if I was the detective working the case, you will not get this case unless you pry it out of my cold, dead hands. The case needs to be worked at that level. And the reality is, there is still work that could be done at the street level. Somebody knows who this guy is. And this is where you send cops out, beat cops, where detectives should be in the field coordinating with cops, and you're locating informants and talking to your snitches. And the FBI is amazing, but they don't possess that ability. They don't know the streets of Pima County. I mean, they got a map book, or I've just dated myself. But this is a case that is going to be solved, if it is going to be solved, by people who know Pima County and Tucson.
And that's why you saw the VCTF, the Violent Crime Task Force. That's why you saw guys, when they took the Range Rover down, look at all the guys wearing the T-shirts. It says FBI Violent Crimes Task Force. Okay. What that is, and so the public understands, okay, they are not investigating the murder. They are assisting in the murder investigation. Okay. It is, and I've said this a couple of times, and hopefully people are catching up, that whenever the Violent Crime Task Force took that Range Rover down, they waited. Okay. What did they wait for? They waited for the investigators to show up and say, okay, you search this room, you search that room, you search that room. Okay, we got enough resources here, and we'll go ahead and interview these guys. Who announced that they were eliminated as suspects? Was it the FBI?
No.
There you go.
No, the FBI has not eliminated anybody.
Well, but wait a minute. There's a reason for that. Okay. Again, you have to understand it's not their case. That's, I guess, what I've been trying to reiterate to people over and over again. The FBI is in a support role right now, completely, unless they can find a federal nexus to an 84-year-old woman getting taken out of her house. It's that simple. And so behind the scenes, it's a tit for tat. If you watch that video again of Kelly in that press conference, what does he say? He says, I want the FBI involved, quote unquote. because he knows. He just brought coffee and donuts into the sheriff and said, "How you guys doing?" He said, "We're doing good." Okay, well, let's get the FBI involved. No, we got it. We're good. Just like he did with the lab. We don't need Quantico. We're set. Don't worry about it. We're good. And that's unfortunate. Instead of saying embracing everybody, okay, and moving forward. So it becomes a real problem. And then you have to show specifically that they crossed state lines, or there's some type of nexus with, somebody in another part of the country, California, as an example, Hawthorne, jumping in the middle of this. And somehow if there's a link, now the FBI can say, okay, we're going to run this thing, okay, until we figure out where her body is. But when that body is found, if they ever find her, and it's within a mile in the desert of her house, the sheriff's going to say, "See you guys later."
Right. And so say they find a body, like you said, over state lines. The over state lines part is where the FBI is in charge, but not the initial crime scene. And they still have to work with Pima County no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, it's where the crime originated. The crime originated in Pima County. And then you have to say, and now there's also going to be a jurisdictional fight, hypothetically, if it is in another city. Let's say it goes to Los Angeles. They find her body in Los Angeles, hypothetically.
Yeah.
LAPD can make the determination whether or not they say, and this will go to the DA's office. The LA DA's office will say, okay, you can give it to the U.S. attorney. You guys run with it. We've got enough bodies here. Okay. But hypothetically, if it's another sheriff who's a friend of Nanos's, okay, that guy can say, hey, sorry, the body's in my city, my town, my county. Have a good day. We'll handle it.
Wow.
That's how it works, unfortunately.
Yeah. So basically, we're stuck with Nanos and him being in charge of the investigation for now. I mean, that's just how it is.
That's it.
Yep.
Yeah. And I just saw in the text, or excuse me, in the chat, Luigi's a good example. That guy was arrested in another state. The FBI take that?
No.
The Manhattan District Attorney's Office is prosecuting him because the murder happened in Manhattan. Well, the FBI task force could have been chasing him. They were all chasing him.
So what does this tell you guys? And Dr. Gary, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this too. But so what does this tell you now that since everything was sent to a private lab, now it's being sent out to the FBI lab for more extensive testing? Does that mean they struck out?
No, they may just have more resources available to them. I mean, it's possible that they have more sophisticated resources. I don't know. I mean, don't you guys think it could be as simple as that? That it's
well, it should have been something that should have been looked at before the decision was made. If I was the case agent, and I don't know just how much, and when I use the term case agent, just to clarify, that is the term we use for being the primary detective, the lead detective, but it's the person who is ultimately answers for the case. So assuming in this instance that the investigator for Pima County was being allowed to make grown-up decisions and decide what happened with the evidence, the first thing I'd want to know is what does the Florida lab offer? What does the FBI lab offer? This should have been looked into. And apparently it wasn't, because I think we can derive from what Gary just said that I think we can infer that the lab in Florida provided some lesser level of service that Quantico can provide.
Possibly.
Again, it's an episode of maybe you should have thought this through in the first place.
Well,
Instead of 70 days later.
although I do think CC Moore, if I'm remembering correctly, did say that the Florida lab was good. That it was a good place. Isn't that correct? That she said that it was.
She did say that. She
I'm not
absolutely.
saying it's a bad lab, but very clearly, I think we can infer that the FBI lab is apparently, if you've sent it there saying you need to do more work on it, I think the implication is that they offer a higher tier of services.
But it doesn't imply in any way that evidence has pointed to a matter that is more federal than state.
No.
At this point, I don't know how you could come to that conclusion based on that exactly.
Right. That's what I think. And so, I mean, it just looks like it's a matter of what they could do with it. And my understanding is that the DNA that they have is sort of multiple person, that it's a mixed DNA, and there might be a way with sophisticated mechanisms of teasing it apart. I'm trying to remember what the fancy word is for that. Not something like deconvolute or devolute or something like that, where you tease apart DNA and try to get, I think it's something like 40% or more of a single profile. Isn't that the story, that they have to get 40% of it? I'd have to look it up. But the point of it is that it does seem plausible. I think I remember CC Moore saying it could take like a year.
Well, let's play that out, right, Gary? Just for a thought, Josh.
Yeah.
Deconvolution, that's the word.
What if it's a family member?
Then their hair and stuff should be in the house.
Yeah.
10-8, as we used to say, 10-8. All units cleared.
Yeah. 10-8, Nora, no report.
So,
well, there'd be a report.
You don't wait for the DNA. You see, and this is one of the things
that's what I'm concerned about, is that I think, and this is just me thinking out loud, that they're sort of putting all their eggs in the one basket here with this DNA situation. And it could turn out that there is nothing of value when it comes to this DNA. And they're hoping and praying that something is there. Am I wrong for feeling that way?
I don't think so. I think you're at this, this is usually how it unfolds. And we may have already heard some of this, like we mentioned a little bit ago, already from the sheriff. He may have leaked it out already from the sheriff, right? They may have locked in people's statements early on, which they should have. And one of the questions is going to be, will we find your DNA at the scene? Okay. And if the person already says, yeah, of course, I go over there all the time. You'll find my dog hair there too, hypothetically, right? All the above. I've had my cats in the car and they've jumped out. You'll find everything there. My fingerprints, I may have even cut myself one time while I was there. Okay. You'll be surprised how creative people can be.
Right.
Well, you got to take that piece of evidence and say, okay, how do I create this evidence beyond a reasonable doubt before a jury? Because you see, the prosecution needs all 12 jurors. The defense needs one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I think people forget that piece of the puzzle sometimes, where all the defense has to say is, well, isn't it true, detective, that he told you or she told you that she's over there all the time? Well, yeah. And you found her hair, didn't you? Yeah, I did.
Mm-hmm.
But did she hurt Miss Guthrie? I can't answer that. No further questions.
Yeah. Well, there was a case that I remember, a case of Dylan Redwine. Dr. Gary, I don't know if you're familiar with that one. He was ultimately murdered by his father on a vacation. He was on a trip there during Thanksgiving, And when they were searching his home, and a matter of fact, this actually took 8 years to bring him to justice. It was a very slow case, but he ended up getting found guilty in 50 years. But when they were searching his house, and it didn't come out till at trial, was that they found a big spot of blood that had been washed away, and it had sunk into the floorboard, and it was Dylan's blood. And when they were talking to him, they said, "Had Dylan ever hurt himself in the house?" Because he was there all the time. Did he ever cut himself? Did he? No, nothing that I really know of. And they said, "Well, you're going to need to explain, why all this blood, why he has so much blood in this spot right here, and that he's missing." And I think from that point on, sort of the worm kind of turned. They ended up finding some skeletal remains about 10 miles away, up in the mountains after a heavy snowpack had melted away. Some hunters, they found the young man's skull, and it had a crack in it, which they had assumed that there was something that the father had hit him over the head with, and they were able
decapitated.
Well, no, I don't know if he was or not, but they found his skull is what they did.
No. You remember the whole story of why the father did it, because I realized what you were talking about. I have it in my data.
Yeah, he found the compromising photos of his father.
They weren't just compromising; it was his father cross-dressing with a diaper full of feces.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah,
and he became it was an elimination murder. It was an elimination murder because he had to get rid of someone who had walked in on him and discovered that.
Change your diaper.
Well, yeah. It's a witness elimination case.
Sure was, yeah.
Found that his father was full of you get it, full of what, and decided he had to So, but he was going to talk, and the father apparently.
And he had confronted the son, or the son had confronted the father about it, and was going to let people know, my dad's a
pervert.
Yeah,
yeah. So the father.
Josh, can I add something about the DNA?
I wish
I
you would.
love that. That was a good segue, John.
You don't want to talk about the diaper?
I think we're done with
just because I wear them. It's
okay. Go.
Don't judge.
It depends. It depends.
It depends. The bulk of the murder cases that we worked did not involve DNA. The DNA technology was not there.
Right.
Yet somehow or another, without DNA, we caught most of our killers. Now, how is that? I'm not going to sit in judgment of modern investigators, but I've noticed that there is a huge reliance on, I want the digital footprint, I want the DNA, and very often these cases are the evidence is equivocal. This is where we used to go out and we used to pound on doors. We would talk to witnesses. We did the actual stuff that involved us getting our rear ends out of chairs and out doing what detectives used to do, which was working a case in the field. And I don't know if that's being done so much anymore, but Chris can remember this. We didn't have DNA. And then when we had DNA, you might get it back in 6 months.
Right.
Yet somehow we managed to solve cases and put people in prison or send them to that special place in San Quentin.
Yeah, but you're forgetting the part about how it didn't just magically happen, and that you would work 12, 13, 16-hour days.
I've got a picture of myself where I fell asleep after working 26 hours. I napped for 90 minutes and got up and went back to work.
We had a couch.
Yeah, we had a couch. And I mean, if you someday I'll send you that picture, Josh. I took my gun out of my shoulder holster and crashed, and somebody took a picture of me asleep. This is how we work these cases.
Not that picture
I had rancid coffee. I would smoke a pipe to get a nicotine rush and go right back to work.
Well, I mean that's sort of, what I was talking about earlier was it's sort of that old school, I mean, you probably had Rolodexes too, didn't you?
Yep.
Yeah, we had Rolodexes and my computer. I was living large. I had an IBM Selectric 2 with the correction ribbon on it. I mean, I knew I'd hit the big time when I got a new typewriter. But we were out in the field and we were solving cases, and we had snitches in the field and nobody we paid for, and you would work the case just as hard as you could. So
Wow, that's interesting.
Can I ask you guys, Josh, are you intending to take calls?
I hadn't thought about it. No.
Might be fun to have people have the opportunity to talk to all of us with their Guthrie questions.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what, are you guys up
in the chat? That's why I'm reading some of the fun ones in the
Sure,
chat.
sure, bud.
Well, it's just
already.
Because we have a ball when we do call-in shows. Oh my God, we get a mixture of people who have really powerful stories that are amazing.
Well, the problem is that there's so many people watching.
What do you mean? What's the problem with that?
Well, there would be a lot of calls.
You think so? You can't limit it to like 2, 3?
Oh, I mean, I could. Yeah, no, I'm saying we could, but there's just.
What are you going to tell the people that get rejected? Sorry, you're not good enough.
There are no losers tonight. We have the lab home game, yeah. With tangible, right? Exactly. No, but the thing is, they have great questions in the chat, and it's an unusual opportunity to get to talk to all of us together about them. It's up to you, but Josh, we never go wrong with the call-in shows. They're, even if you get people that are like positively goofy, they're funny. They're great.
We've had that. The garage door lady. That lady was the best.
Oh, they don't know about that. We had a woman who called in. She was great. She called in and she said that she was like, she had some kind of infirmity, and she decided, sort of like that scene in 12 Angry Men where he imitates the limp to get the timing to see how long it would take for someone with a limp to walk to the door. She wanted to do the reenactment of the Guthrie scene, and she set it up, like borrowed someone's garage, like chased them out of the garage and used the garage to reenact a woman getting out of a vehicle and slowly on a cane walking so that she could time it. And I told her she was a fantastic detective, because she figured out exactly how many minutes it would take. And so
that's how we did it, man. We'd measure distances. Yeah.
I loved her. Josh, didn't you think she was great?
Yeah, she actually was.
I told her she was like that author who was writing about John Wilkes Booth. So he actually went to Ford's Theater and leapt from the booth to see what it would feel like. The phenomenon, jumping off the
And then Gary told her that she should reenact the DB Cooper case.
Right, when she jumped out of a
plane. I said, so you wanted to jump out of a plane? Gary goes, oh, I forgot about that part. You forgot about that part with DB Cooper. That's
I told her she should sit on the lawn with some chairs set up and somebody going and jump. No, but she was great. But if you do want to do some calls, I also wanted to ask you guys,
can take them.
I wanted to ask you guys what you thought about the new hypothesis that was floated on Enton, because it's puzzling to me. Now, you mentioned, Josh, that the show. So the hypothesis that was put forward is something like this. The note that came from that Savannah thinks might be real.
Yeah, she mentioned that in the interview. Yeah.
Okay. And the note in that note, the person says to Savannah something like, "We're really sorry. We didn't know how weak your mother's heart was." Okay. And so the hypothesis that was put forward is something like, maybe the reason for that is not empathy or compassion, but that the person is part of a group that was responsible for trying to take her, and that when she perhaps passed away, the person is trying to distance him or herself legally in advance. Like, I didn't have anything to do with her dying, FYI. Now,
Nice
I,
try.
I mean, like I said, I don't
Gary,
think
if you're part of the conspiracy, you are a principal. So that
That's
may have been their thinking,
right.
but the fact is if a group acts in concert as conspirators, every one of them, whether you intended the death or not, whether it was an accidental death that was occurring during the course of a felony, you're all equally responsible. Now, I'm certain a defense attorney would attempt to argue, and we've all seen that. But under what I'm assuming would be the Arizona's laws are identical to what California's are, you're still a principal. You are still just as culpable as the person that drove the car or yanked her out of the bed or so. But I could see how somebody who wasn't acquainted with the law, an offender, might think, well, I need to cushion my fall. I need to make myself less culpable than the other guys.
But does that really seem like the thought process of that guy on the camera? I mean, it would have to be a different character. That guy.
It has to be a different character, and literally, why would you offer this? Why would you proffer this theory if you're not in custody?
Yeah.
Well, what I said on that this program was that it incurred such a risk. It was so extra to send such a note that it made me wonder if the person knew Savannah, because there's a whiff of sympathy in it. Look, I know you're upset that, we just want you to understand, for closure's sake, like, we're really sorry. Your mom, her heart was weak and we didn't expect it. Didn't mean to, that kind of thing. I just think that would suggest somebody who had some modicum of care for Savannah. If you look at it from a different perspective, if you take the I don't want to get in trouble thing off the table, and you think of it from a compassion angle, it doesn't look like that psychopathic-like guy on the camera, but it almost makes me wonder if there's somebody involved who knows her and experiences some sensitivity. Anyway, what do you think, Chris? I mean, it's an interesting idea, but I don't see it.
Yeah, and I'll dovetail into John's thought process as well, and where the DA is going to use that as an overt act, that of consciousness of guilt. And,
yeah, exactly. That statement is consciousness of guilt. Excellent point, Chris.
And so they're going to throw that at them, whether, look, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, look, he even wrote an apology letter, because he knew exactly what he was doing. That's how that will play out in court.
And how do you play for claim you're being sympathetic or empathetic toward the victim when you went into her house at 2 a.m.? How do you explain that? Well, we didn't know her heart was so weak, so we went in the house for, it just doesn't play well with the other.
Yeah.
But I could see someone offering that theory if they had decided, or the offer was being made, if they're in custody, of, look, you can minimize your role in this. And we do that. We did that all the time in multiple suspect homicide cases.
That's why
you just say, yeah, whoever wants to whoever wants to be the helpful witness as opposed to the suspect and get less time, I'm here.
Well, let's talk about that for a second too, because I will show this. So this is one of the articles, Chris, where they talked about your show that night, and it says that Nancy Guthrie's case hits roadblock as no one can come forward without incriminating themselves, and they were quoting me. Hold on, sorry, that's on your face, Dr. Gary. Sorry about that. They were quoting me when I said that. And I still believe that. I still think that the reason that nobody has come forward is because whoever does incriminates themselves. And it would be extremely difficult to, yes, I think that they would be willing to cut a deal, but I don't think that there's going to be total amnesty for total honesty.
No.
And I don't think that they'll be able to collect on that as well. But it says here in a recent interview of the Episode Room, Josh Diaz said he thinks it's more than one person. I think that most of us think that it's more than just the porch person, right? I mean, do we all think that? Dr. Gary, you believe that too, correct?
More than one, definitely.
More than one. And that the reason nobody's come forward, and I think that there's 2 to 3 suspects, that's just my opinion. They can't do that without incriminating themselves. And I have found that in those sort of situations that rewards don't really work if you can't give the info that you need to without going to jail yourself because of the proximity to the crime. And Dr. Gary, I know that you think that this is a local person as well. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all agree that the comfort level the person demonstrated, I mean, it sort of suggests somebody who, has been there and knows that area and has encountered her in some way. And I just think looking beyond even a small radius from that house might be, a little silly. I think it's somebody right around there, which then, of course, raises the question, why her? Why this woman? I mean, she's vulnerable. She was as from a victimology. This is where Chris and I we start thinking of the filters, right? And that like we use in the film. But from the victimology angle, it is interesting to think about why her. I think it's a really important question. I mean, she's 84 years old. She's vulnerable. She's in bed. But why? What do you get? What is the why now? Is it that she's just the mother of a person who has enough millions of dollars to pay you? Is it as simple as that? Or is there more to it?
Well, Dr. Gary, I hear you. You and I have, I don't know if we've sparred about this, but we do sort of disagree that,
the robbery.
Yeah.
You don't think that nothing was stolen. I think
I just don't know. But I don't think
they said, although you don't trust the information, I think
it's not even that I don't trust the information. It's just that I don't even really remember exactly what he said, but how would they know, how would they know exactly what somebody was going in to look for and to take? And, it could have been anything.
Well, my guess is that there were valuables that were still there.
What if she, and I'm not saying that this is it, but what if she had a stash of money that like a maintenance person knew where it was? Sometimes people put money under their bed. They go in there, they take the money, they take her. Nobody would ever know that was there. Chris, am I wrong there? I mean,
why take her? What do you need to take her for?
Well, that there could have been a struggle. There could have been, she could have put up some resistance. I mean, I don't know.
Chris, what do you think? Will that dog hunt, as they say, down south? The dog won't hunt.
Sometimes I come off as, very sarcastic, and cynical. But
really,
and then we have to go to the idea of, and I'll just prop the doors open.
Right. That's true.
Yeah, but that's to take her out.
That's the point.
Yeah, but maybe they didn't prop the doors open until they needed to take her out.
Why take her?
Then why the front? Why is the blood in the front? Doesn't make sense.
But the blood's in the
back door. Go out the back.
But they go out the back, but the blood's in the front. So that doesn't make any sense either.
It obviously implies that they had one plan and it went south, and they had to go out another door because of what happened.
Or did it go south? I mean, let's always keep that on the board.
Yeah, these crimes are very often they fall apart. You're not exactly dealing with Mensa members who are doing this. Right. And you often get people that may be under the influence or just maybe have they haven't used yet.
Right.
And whoever's in charge has made a bad judgment to employ that person.
Right.
And I mean, and even if we presume everybody involved was like they were all squared away and bright, Then you got to just go back to von Clausewitz's theory of war, which is no plan, however perfect, survives intact the moment it comes into contact with the enemy. Or to put it into this sort of arena, the plan will fall apart just simply because inertia is the natural course of the universe. Problems are going to happen. These operations almost never go off without a hitch.
Right. And or you know, they could have taken her because she saw them. She knew who they were.
Yeah.
They're not going to leave her. I mean, that would be a, you know, that would be a reason to take her and then, you know, say, hey, let's stage this as some sort of a ransom, when that's not what it was to begin with. If she could identify her attackers or kidnappers or robbers or whatever they intended to be, kidnappers, that's a major problem for the people that broke into her house that night and did whatever that they were supposed to do.
Yeah, but I guess we're not disagreeing then that finance seems to have been the motive. It's just a matter of, you know, what they might have taken or how they might have attempted to achieve money. But you're arriving at the same conclusion that I drew just based on statistics. The most probable motive in this kind of crime is not sexual. It's not, you know, abduction for the sake of it. It's not. It looks like it was financial. And the thing is, but the one thing I think we always have to bear in mind is that you can make a more emotional, personal crime look like a robbery in a kind of staging. And if it were to turn out to be that, that would be a very sophisticated kind of staging. In you know, because I mean, they didn't do a very good job because they didn't give classic signs of robbery or sexual assault or any of the things that would explain breaking into a house and doing this in a more overt way. But if it is staged, then, you know, this notion of maybe hiring somebody to commit something that looks like a more traditional crime to make it look like something that doesn't have to do with someone who knows you is very interesting. And I wouldn't say unprecedented, but interesting. Usually you would just do it yourself and try to look like an outsider, like put a mask on and make yourself look like an intruder or something like that. But
Stagey, though, Gary.
what?
Too many moving parts.
That's what I'm saying. It would be too difficult, and I think it would have collapsed by now. You know, the story would have collapsed by now. So I don't know. I just think that from the Occam's razor perspective, is a financial thing that went haywire, or it was a kind of elimination homicide, either directly committed by the person who did it or somebody behind the curtain. But in one way or another, you had to have some knowledge of her that was a little more than passing.
Well, that's the other thing, is that I think that whoever was in charge of this, or whoever participated in this, probably knew that there weren't a lot of safeguards at her home, because things were sort of, I guess you could say, laxed. There were, you know, many ways to get in through the back, and that there was no subscription on the fact that they have the door, the porch guy video is a miracle, right, Chris?
Yeah.
So I think that when they came up with that, and that was put out there into the ether, whoever was on that front porch probably went, oh shit, you know, that I can't believe that they have that, because I think that they had knowledge that that maybe that's not how the camera system worked, that she didn't have the, you know, the cloud subscription or whatever it is that, you know, saves it on to somebody's phone, and that they did not expect that to be there.
Well, we don't see Jason anymore, but he would have told us. I don't know where he's been.
He's around. I talked to him a few days ago. I think he's got busy with some family stuff, I believe.
Okay, because I think he'd explain to us. It's an interesting thing.
Yeah. So, but Chris, can you sort of, if it's I mean, you believe it's financial too, don't you? Or is that?
I mean, that's a logical, a logical thought process that would say, okay, why is this woman's house being selected at 2:00 in the morning? Right? That's, I mean, only bad guys are out at that time of the morning, creeping around, looking in cameras.
And why that date?
Yeah. What's the significance of the date? What's the significance of the chosen time? It's a full moon that puts the suspect at risk because now somebody else could see them. Is there a vehicle involved? If so, why did they make that decision to pull the vehicle into a known environment where there's a full moon? That night was a full moon. Okay. And then you have to ask yourself, okay, well, what behaviors did they, demonstrate by concealing the fact that they were in the area? Okay. And every time you start thinking about that, you start thinking about, okay, well, what is the hunter seeing? Because he's on the hunt. This person is out hunting, whether it's stuff or for whether it's her. Maybe he didn't anticipate her being in there. Maybe that was the first theory that I think the cops were working off of. That, oh, this is a burglary gone wrong. And they probably would have said, well, we've got all these situations going around her, the geographic region here. How many priors, how many capers do we have here? And I mean, just look what social media did. So on an open source, search, they went out, people went out and they had the guy, throwing the bags over the fence. They had, the 5 or 6 crew, going to the door with the Amazon package. I mean, social media did it. You can imagine what law enforcement has access to. Okay. And so, they went and looked at everything in the environment and said, okay, could this be our player somewhere in this group? And now you have to ask, as you're processing that, say, okay, why did they select this? And I'll give you, again, I like to use real world experiences because, it brings authenticity to a conversation like this for all of us. I mean, John, you were the first one in on the El Torito caper. Tell them what you found.
And the moment, you want me to lay the scene out?
Yeah.
I was a patrol sergeant at the time, and an alarm activation was put out over the air. I happened to be very nearby at a restaurant called El Torito in the city of Oceanside. And I responded. It was not a business that customarily the alarms went off. When I arrived, I saw a side door ajar and opened the door. And the moment I opened up the door, I could instantly smell the blood. And so I knew just going in that something bad had happened. And I entered the restaurant, found 2 restaurant employees tied up, and then continued to the restaurant manager's office, where I found him, and he had been tortured and stabbed to death, and the safe was open next to him. And when Chris arrived, my first thought was, well, they killed the manager. Why did they leave the 2 restaurant workers? And then Chris can take it, but you walk into a scene and convey that information to the detective, who then runs with it. And I also sent cops out to look for the weapon, and which was subsequently found. So,
yeah. And so first thing we did was lock into the statements with the 2 employees inside the restaurants. And they were both cut. The paramedics, they were both cut on both arms. They had been tied to these chairs, and blood was everywhere, including obviously from the victim. And back then, again, we didn't have DNA. You do blood swabs, and you get ABO blood typing. Yep, it's the same as the victim. Okay, but we locked them in and said, thank you very much. We'll be in touch. And we started working the caper. And one day with Augie De La Rosa and a couple other guys, we decided, let's bring these two workers back in. And I put them in separate rooms. Long story short, they were like, well, we couldn't see who the suspect was because he was wearing a mask. I said, well, that's interesting because there's a bank right next door. It was a Wells Fargo bank. There's a bank right next door, and the drive-through camera is just happened to be looking at the door that you said the suspect went out. And when I watched the video, he doesn't have a mask on. And the kid leaned forward, the person did, and he goes, can I talk to my cousin? I said, absolutely. So we run and we put them both in the same room, and he leans over, and within 5-10 seconds, he goes, they know Uncle Mauricio wasn't wearing a mask. And the rest is history. That's going to be something, in my opinion, this case is so complicated, not. Okay. Everybody, the more thought, the more, theories, the more chefs in the kitchen, in terms of ideas and folks that weigh in and including myself and others. Okay. You have to stay with the fundamentals. And I have an opinion that the fundamentals are real simple. This person or persons, one or two, if they had a vehicle, that means you have a control problem, especially when you took her out of the house. That also means who had a role. What was their roles? Who did what and why? Like Dr. Gary talks about, who's the chef and who are the waiters? Okay. Who's the chef? Maybe it's one waiter. Okay. With today's tax cuts, you can keep your tips. And so we think about that idea of, it's complicated. We're making it complicated for, this knucklehead who reaches up with a bunch of weeds. And I mean, we've got this guy using the weeds to pull the camera off, and we've got him with a backpack with a tarp inside, and he's going to roll her up and, we're going to pull her out, and they came prepared for that, and yada, yada, yada. Okay. Well, what happens when you get the suspect in the interview and this guy goes, I didn't have any of that crap. What was in the bag? Another jacket. It was 43 degrees that night. Yeah. I didn't know if I was going to need one. Okay. Oh, okay. Well, I guess we had that one wrong. Okay. So you don't try to say, you just follow the bouncing ball, as I like to say, and then you find these anomalies when you do that. And the anomalies, it takes you back to what is weird, what doesn't stick right in everybody's thought process. Right. I mean, look what they're doing right now with the gal on the boat in the Bahamas. Okay. What if she did fall off? They're saying, well, he left the Bahamas. Okay. Yeah. Well, let's talk to that guy like 10 more times, 15 more times, and find out why he left the Bahamas. Let's not say, yeah, the guy's down for the count. Okay. Because at that point you get locked in, and that's why the Cold Case Foundation has job security. As we go around the country and say, what are you thinking about? And I mean this because, I solved a case in Louisiana, in Lake Charles, Louisiana. They brought in all these pictures and they put them on the we were doing a case review is what it's called. After we taught them for a whole week, we have them bring a case that's unsolved. long story short, the detective puts these pictures on the desk, on the table. And I looked at it. I looked over. I looked at Greg Cooper. I threw it over to Greg. I said, you see? He goes, yeah. And then we put it back to the detective. And I said, you see the phone line here, right? It's cut. He goes, yes, sir. I said, okay, well, tell me about the screwdriver here on the counter. He goes, quote, what screwdriver? The one that you've been staring at for 10 years on the counter, that one. Okay. Now I didn't say that, but that's what I was thinking. Okay. It's just like the wreath the other night when I pointed it out to the left side of the porch. You have a picture of the porch, Josh?
I'll bring it up right now.
I said, well, what about the wreath on the wall? And people went, what wreath? The one that's hanging on the wall right there on the, because everybody, everybody gets, they're going to this thing at 150 miles an hour. And quite frankly, I'll guarantee you that's exactly what the new detectives did. And John and I have seen this 100 times.
You don't do it. When you walk into a crime scene, you resist the urge to jump into doing something.
Slow down.
Put your hands in your pockets. You slow it down. You slow it down to Department of Motor Vehicle clerk speed. I mean, you go as slow as possible and you absorb the scene.
Is that the blood photo, Chris?
Yeah. Don't show the blood because see, everybody was focusing on the blood in the mat. And then I heard about and I missed it too. The first time I saw it, I missed it. Okay. And as soon as I heard the door was propped open, possibly with pots or something like that, I went looking for pots. And on the front porch is a big pot. Okay. And then I thought, okay, well, this is kind of dumb that this idiot reaches over and grabs a bunch of weeds. Okay. And I'm thinking, well, then there's a doggone wreath right here. What is it in their thought process that he would have ignored the wreath right when he was walking up onto the porch and he looks to the left and that wreath is staring him right in the face? Why did he pass it? Familiarity? A game? Not part of the script? I don't know. Do you see it? Did you find it, Josh?
No, I don't.
Here, I'll send it to you. I'll pull it. I'll look on this end, and you guys.
Okay.
Keep my mouth shut.
Let me see. I only see the blood in the mat and.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll find it here in a minute.
Cool. Thanks. 1 second here.
Chris, when you said you get to keep your tips, all I could think of was, unless you're John Wayne Bobbitt.
Unbelievable.
That poor guy. Dear God. Remember that?
Yes.
I don't remember the event, but I remember the jokes about it. Like because I might have been in like middle school when that happened, and
Pretty bad.
there were songs about it.
Oh yeah.
So,
He became an adult film star and made a movie called like Frankenweenie or something about that he was reconnected. And then there was that's a true story. And then Ann Burgess and I and Victor Pacheco, we studied castration as an unusual form of mutilation. And it's interesting. I remember that the state in which you are most likely to be castrated is North Carolina.
Why is that?
But just there's the most number of cases there. But the really interesting thing is there was one case in China of a wife whose husband was unfaithful, so she castrated him, and he was hospitalized, and they reconnected it, and she dressed up as a nurse, broke into the hospital, and cut it off again and hurled it out the hospital window so that reconnection would become impossible. Now that is good planning. No, but seriously, she hurled it out the window. I mean, it's like it's just there aren't that many cases. We found, just a couple of score of
It's
cases.
in your text, Gary. Josh.
Yeah, but hey, it's a thing. But anyway, enjoy keeping your tips.
You're bad. 2 shows, 3 and 11.
Smoke if you got him.
Welcome if you got them, huh?
While you're pulling that up, Josh, I just saw that they had Rick Moranis advertising the new Spaceballs.
Awesome.
I can't wait because Chris, you love it, right?
Oh, I'm going like 10 times.
Wait, there's a new Spaceballs coming out?
Yeah, they reunited the cast.
And he's also going to do another Strange Brew film. If you remember Strange Brew from, there were the characters from Second City Television.
Yeah.
Doug and so.
I miss John Candy.
Yes.
But otherwise, they've got the whole cast, right? I think Bill Pullman, they're probably going to come back. Daphne Zuniga, Joan Rivers is dead, who played Dottie, the C-3PO like robot. But Mel Brooks is like 100. He's going to play Yogurt again.
Rick Moranis is going to do a movie again?
He's doing the Darth helmet.
I thought he was done.
With ludicrous speed.
That's Chris's favorite. I didn't see you playing with your dolls again, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. So look to the right. You see the pot where the Amazon gift was, but the Amazon was closer to the sidewalk. And then look to the left, while we were all staring at the doorbell, there's a wreath hanging right there. And when the suspect, now put yourself in the suspect's mind just for a second, when he's walking up to that door and he knows that door is going to be, really problematic. I mean, why did he go up to the front door if he came in through the back anyway? What was the purpose of that?
Well, I always thought that he may have been the driver, but as people pointed out, why would the driver be wearing a backpack
and have a gun?
And yeah. So that didn't make any sense.
So, and then as he walks up, just envision that video of him walking up, and he looks over to the left, and you see this big thing hanging there. Okay. And it's got some type of, way to hang it. Why not just take it off the wall and hang it on the camera? Why not? I mean, you see, these are all things that you just go, yeah, why? And if I had this guy in an interview, I'd show him this picture and say, just out of curiosity, what were you thinking when you looked over and you saw that wreath there? Because I saw the video. Here, let me play the video for you. What the heck were you thinking when you turned around and grabbed a bunch of weeds? I don't think he's going to say, well, I was going to use them to pull the camera down. I don't see, I don't see this guy, going, yeah, I was going to use the weeds and pull it down. Okay.
You really think that's what he was trying to do?
No, I don't.
Well, what do you think you were trying to do, Gary?
I don't know. It's one of those things where I just feel that when we have a premise, when we have the basis for it, we'll go, oh, okay. I mean, I kind of get it, but I mean, I'm sure that it's a little more logical than that. I mean, maybe he thought maybe he was signaling to somebody, maybe he was blocking light, maybe he thought that the lens, maybe he thought it was motion detection equipment, something, but nobody would do that. I mean, that's like the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Why is he on the front porch in the first place?
It makes part of me thinks that the other guy is in there and they're communicating with each other and he goes to the wrong door, something like that. And he's like looking in the glass, like, where are you, bro? Like, that kind of thing. But I think there was communication because there was like what looked like a walkie-talkie. Wasn't there some communication probably?
Yeah, it looked like there was a walkie-talkie, and maybe he's just a lookout in front.
Yeah, as I'm saying, like, I got the car running, like, let's go, or I've got the bag, I've got the stuff, I've got the.
Yeah, but if he's the lookout, why the backpack?
Well, I just think a few things point to there being more than one person.
Well, I do
Yeah.
too.
And so is the idea that we think the back door is propped open first? That's like where this starts. You break in through the back, or the door is already open because she tends to leave it unlocked. Or
Well, whoever went into the
Prop it
house first is much more violent than this guy on the porch.
much more violent. That's an
Well,
interesting.
and there's no evidence that there was any sort of forced entry through the front door. So I think we could, just using deductive powers, the point of entry was likely the back door.
Right.
So why the front? Why
the
wouldn't
front?
you go to the front?
Unless he's a lookout, because a couple of times he turns away from the door and looks out. Specifically, he looks to the right a number of times. Now, we don't know enough about the layout as to whether that view allows him access to the road.
Well, what if it's something like you stand here and I'm going to go through the back, and if she tries to escape through the front, you'd be standing there and clock her. That
Yeah,
kind of.
That's a
And
possibility too.
door opens, hits her, and there's blood.
Yeah, I mean, because the guy had a gun. I mean, he was maybe there for control. He was
Right.
nobody's coming in or coming out the front door.
It'd be like chasing down a turtle.
That's another thing that I was thinking, because she couldn't move.
Right.
Not well.
Right. But what do you think, Chris, about the idea that person's job was to stand there and basically prevent her from going out that front door? You think the slowness of
It wouldn't have been necessary. You can control her inside the house.
Right. And you think they would have observed her enough to know she couldn't ambulate?
Well, if everything everybody's been talking about, that this guy
Right.
is so comfortable
He is.
with this house and with the interior of this environment. Okay, I mean, she's 84 years old at 2:27 in the morning, whatever the time frame is, I forget. That you see a disconnect from her pacemaker. Okay, well, it's not hard to control her at that point. I mean, really, it's not difficult to control her in any way, shape, or form. And so the question is it somebody that is inside of her circle of influence, kind of like when we'll just go back to, Elizabeth Smart as an example, as a child.
Right.
And the sister says, oh, yeah, it was the painter. Okay. Maybe she's in there saying, why are you doing it? I don't know. I don't know what she was saying or why she would have been saying it. We'll only know those answers when we sit down with that guy or gal or whoever it's going to be and say, okay, well, what's the deal here? Why did you not just grab the wreath? And then they tell you, well, because, okay. And, why did you choose the front door to take her out? I mean, look what you had look at that front door. It's a left facing it. It's a left swing. So coming out, it's easy. Okay. But the interior door is an interior pull right swing. Okay. So now he's got to manipulate the door. He's got to control the door. He has to control Nancy. Okay. And then he's got to get through this door. And if it's dead bolted, okay, well then, okay, first of all, he can't figure out how to get a doggone camera off. He's going to cover it with weeds. Okay. So now he's going to have to play with that lock, which you would think it's, pretty easy just to flip the switch. Okay. But is the lock mechanism, is it function correctly?
Right.
Do we know? Okay. So if it's locked in the front door, why are we not to believe the back doors wouldn't have been locked? That when you hear a story where somebody says, yeah, the doors, she leaves them open. And you hear it from a neighbor who says, yeah, she leaves it open. Well, how do you know that?
I don't think you would tell your neighbors that you leave it open. You might tell your inner circle. But
okay. Well, even your inner circle, why would you tell Why would my mother tell me, hey, Mom, at night, or Chris, I need to tell you something. What is it, Mom? Well, you know, I'm 84 years old and I'm going to start leaving my doors open at night. Really? I think it actually works the opposite way. Let's take a poll. Anybody over 60 in the chat, how many of you leave your doors open? Hey, Josh, can you put a poll up? I know there's a way to do that.
I sure can.
Put a poll up. How do you leave your doors open at night? Yes or no? Let's see what the numbers come in.
Let's check it out. Let's do it.
I don't see it as a habit pattern for 84-year-old elderly women, as sweet as she is and as sharp as she is, to leave her door open in the evening. You know, we'll see what the jury says.
Cool.
You know, and so then you ask yourself, okay, well, where'd that come from?
So
Well,
just do you leave your door unlocked at night?
Yeah, at night. Do you leave your doors open? Or yes or no?
Yes or no?
Look at the right now. Just the word no is jumping up. Yes, but not when I'm sleeping. So that's a no. Doors have been locked since Richard Ramirez.
That's a good point.
That's a scary. Never. I live in the Bahamas. Well, you may now because you got people falling off of dinghies.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm joking. And I'm talking older people, over 65. I'm not talking about youngsters. Okay. I mean, my house is like Fort Knox.
Yeah, well, overwhelmingly right away, with over 500 votes already, it's 92% say no.
Then that gives you a sense of common sense that the elderly have. And I find it very difficult to believe that Miss Guthrie, knowing that there are things going around her community just by watching the news in Tucson, Arizona, and it's the gun and knife club every night. There's a saying in the news business, if it bleeds, it leads.
Yep.
Okay. And I can see the elderly in that area going, you know what? I think I'll just leave my doors open. No, it ain't happening. I don't think it's happening.
I mean, I think that possibly there was a false sense of security in that neighborhood because it's pretty isolated. It's in the foothills, and there had been a couple neighbors that had mentioned that it really wouldn't be that uncommon for people to do that in that area.
Then you have to ask them, were you here 20 years ago when they had a essay series where the guy was 261ing? I'll let you look that number up in the penal code section in California, PC 261. Okay. When this person was a serial, you guys know what I'm talking about in the chat, essays. Okay.
Yeah.
And you say, okay, well, how long you lived here? Well, I grew up here. I've like Mrs. Guthrie, I've lived here 50 years. Oh, okay. Well, then you were here during the big series. Oh, yeah. Did you learn anything? Oh, yeah. I learned to lock my windows and my doors every single night, just like the Ramirez comment a minute ago, if they're living in LA. Okay.
Right.
Every single night, Mrs. Guthrie was looking at the news and going, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And I guarantee she had conversations with Savannah and with her son-in-law, with her sister, with her daughter. What do you guys think? Do you think I should leave my doors open at night? Are you kidding me? They'd be like, I mean, look at Savannah now. She'd be like, Mom, are you crazy? And listen to the comment from the brother. Did I do this? Could I be responsible? Yes, sweetie, it's possible. Okay. Now think about that. You don't think the mom has said, Savannah, am I at risk because of you? I'll guarantee you that conversation took place somewhere. John, what? I mean, am I the only one talking here?
No, I'm
Well, but you're making sense, and it and so much of this information we are relying on, um, it's not firsthand information, and we can't attest to the accuracy of it.
Exactly.
And so, it's one of these points where we have to say we have to fall back on what we know about rational behavior. And okay, I'm old, and I lock. My house is locked up at night, and so I think it would be a safe presumption that she had the house locked up too, which then begs the question: how was entry made? And does this mean that the offender had a key? Does this mean that the offender made initial entry through the garage? So it doesn't bring us any closer to resolving this crime, but it does tell us that a lot of this stuff that we're pursuing probably is not going to bring us any closer to what happened.
Right. Go ahead, Gary.
No, I was going to say, I wish we had an overhead image of the property, because I wanted to ask you all where you think the car was sitting.
Well, I mean, I'm sure I could find some drone footage.
Here, I can pull it up. Also, Josh.
I really want all your opinion, because based on the way he's sort of looking in the front, I mean, I think he's looking at somebody who's sitting in a car, or at a car with the lights off or something like that. But I'm just curious. I mean, wouldn't you think you'd park it away from the camera? So, like, where is it? On the side of the house, like in the back where the flower pots are set up? But they would have found tire marks. Sort of. Where is it? On the pavement? Not on the pavement? I'm just curious what you guys think about the place. But we all agree there was a vehicle.
Oh, yes, there had to.
Out in my mind. I mean, and it gets pulled up to the front, certainly when she gets in it, because there's blood from the front door to the driveway. So we know that she exits. Now, there's another possibility, which would be that she was taken out of a car and carried into the house, but that makes no sense because she's not in there. So why would you do such a thing? Unless you, no, it doesn't make any sense. The only logical explanation is she's in the house, she's bleeding, and they take her out, right?
Yes.
Because the blood stops at the front door. There's no way she's going into the house bleeding, right? We know of no blood in that house. Yeah, so she's taken out of the house to the vehicle. So where's that car? Just curious.
Didn't Ashley Banfield say that there was blood inside the door?
Just inside, but not beyond. I think she said it was just like it's all in the area of the door, right?
Like from yeah. So there's some on the outside, and then she claims that there was some.
So she's coming out of the house, and the blood is left. But let me just see. I just want to know where you all think that car was. And I mean, it's certainly, my guess is that it was moved to the front when she was being taken out, but that it was being tucked away somewhere the whole time, right? Chris, don't you think? I mean, that car wasn't out there in the open in front of the house, in front of that door the whole time, was it?
You hope not. That the suspect's thinking about their risk level.
That's why that's why Porch Guy was there to get rid of the camera, because well, in my opinion, that way they could pull up in front and load up Miss Nancy. And I think that the leaf thing is nothing more than him just trying to cover it up. He was trying to get it to hang over the camera, and that's it. I don't think that there's much more to that. It didn't work, so he threw it away, and then he ripped it off.
But hold on a minute, Josh. If you're correct, then why wouldn't they just pull the car around back and take her out there, knowing there was no camera?
Because it's easier to go out the front.
Why? They propped the back open with pots. The front wasn't prop anything open. It just seems like it would have made more sense to take her out the back.
Well, it would be harder to pull into the backyard, wouldn't it? You
I
have to
don't know.
carry it
That's why I
through
want to
the-
look at the property. It looks to me like it would have been much easier. I mean, if I'm understanding what I'm seeing, Chris, wouldn't it have been easier to take her back there?
Out the back.
Yeah.
easier out the front.
Yeah, but that's it doesn't make
Doesn't make sense.
no, well, because the one guy, the porch guy comes from where these two black trucks are in the front. He comes from that direction from the garage.
Oh, I see. I was a little disoriented of what it was looking.
He comes from the garage side and then he looks towards the porch side for reference. And that's just a split second. I think he heard something. I don't think he saw anybody. And I don't think there's anybody else out there acting as cover.
Well, give us a tour of what we're looking at on the screen, please. So the black vehicle you're referring, see that garage there?
That's the garage that she went into, correct?
Well, that's where she went in. Yeah, allegedly.
At night when she was dropped off.
Hold on. Just for logic's sake, Chris, or Josh, if you know.
I don't know it. I don't know the
Give
layout.
me a walkthrough. Where are the points of entry that you're seeing, Chris? The vulnerability points in terms of entry.
Well, there's a couple. If we're just talking about the main house right there. So you've got the garage, you've got the front door. Okay, here's the back.
This is the back where the pots held the door open.
Allegedly, yeah.
So under that awning.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay, so there's no
And
road.
there's two doors under that awning. There's one directly. If staring at the awning to the far left, there are two doors that go into the kitchen. You have the garage door, the main garage door that closes in 2 minutes, 10:48 and 10:50.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the secondary where the ladder is right there to the left. You have a door there that potentially goes into some type of storage room or something like that. But then you have the gate. There's a gate going back into the pool area. Okay.
Mm.
So you can see that door, and that's the light that is dangling down there. Okay. And so right where they just came out of the kitchen where they just walked out.
Yeah, so you would have to be parked by the garage and have to bring her all the way out through these back doors, through this little grass area, through here. And the closest place to be would be right in front of the garage. And that's a long way to carry somebody. And it would, maybe he said, hey, go make sure that there's no camera out on the front. We got to pull the car around to the front. And that's what he's trying to do, cover up the camera with the flowers. And that's what, that's the question that, or whatever they were. I don't get what he was doing with the plants. I think that he was just trying to hang the plants on over the camera, and that's it. And then when it didn't work, he ripped it off. Is that what you think too, Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything to it other than that.
I think it's Gomer Pyle.
Yeah. I mean, it would have just been smart to just rip it off from the get-go, but for some reason he didn't do that.
I still don't understand why that guy would go around the front if the back is propped open.
Well, maybe that was the intent to go out
and open the front door through the house, and it looks like they did because there's blood going over the door threshold.
That's what I'm saying. That maybe that was the intent to go out the back, because you don't expose yourself as much to as visibility.
I see. And then she dies or something, and
she got hurt, and they said, "Yeah, we got to get her out. We got to hurry up. We got to get her out the front. Pull the car around to the front. Take care of the camera." And then that's where the blood, because he's injured in this scenario.
So your reconstruction is that when we see door guy, that's when something has already happened to Nancy, and somebody is communicating to that guy we see in the front. We now have to take her out the front because something has occurred. Drive the car around the front, and then the door is open and she's bleeding and she gets into the car. So in other words,
I didn't realize there was more cameras out back.
So well, I'm going to give Josh another exclusive here.
Let's do it.
Which I've been holding.
I love when you do that. Thank you, Chris.
La la. Embedded 2 hours
into my brother.
Easter egg.
Appreciate you. For a couple of weekends. All right. I want to know. Remember we talked about the clicker and the time frame. the timeline. Okay. What else I want to know is I would have sat down with the family and asked them one question. You know that metal grate going out? Yes, sir. Tell me about it. What do you mean? Well, when you got here, if they don't tell me it was opened, we got a problem.
Interesting.
Because that metal grate has a deadbolt on it. And nobody has thought about if the deadbolt was locked or open. And when the first cops got there, the first thing I would have asked my patrol guy is, I see there's a deadbolt on the front door. What did the family say? I didn't ask him. Go ask him. When you got here, how did you find the front door? We know you found the back door propped open. But what about the front door? You see, sometimes the simple things trip up the narrative. If that person says, well, we didn't go out the front door, then you follow it up with, well, why not? You're looking for your mother, right? Yes, sir. Okay, so why didn't you go out the front? Well, we found the back door open, and we thought maybe there was an emergency medical event. And now if you go to the front door and that door is locked, who locked it? Or has it always been locked? And now
you're referring to the screen door.
that's the big metal screen door. Go back to the front porch.
Yeah.
Nobody's talking about this. They're only talking about the interior door, that the suspect had to open that door. But you see, look at that top lock. Can you zoom in?
Yeah, well, I have this exact in
Door.
white screen door, and so you have a deadbolt on the top and a regular lock at the bottom, and it's pretty secure.
And that is the deadbolt that locks into the metal trim piece around that door. And so I want to know what the family said about it.
Also, you can't see in on these doors. You can only see out. It's like a one-way door. So like if you can leave your regular door open and you can't see in to the house, still you can see out, but you cannot see in. That's how they're designed. Not that matters. I just
remember when I was interviewing Candace and we were down in the basement, and I asked her, I said, tell me about that door. And she turned around and volunteered, well, to be honest with you, I don't know if it was open or closed, if it was locked or closed, because she knew a 5-year-old can't reach up there and grasp that lock and spin it and get out that door. And so she changed that story like 4 or 5 times. And remember, Josh, I said this whole conversation is going to keep evolving. Okay. And this will be the same thing. If the family initially said, well, when we got there, it was locked and we didn't go out the front, then you ask why. You're looking for your mother. And if they say, when we got there and it was open, okay, then we have to say, okay, well, yeah, the suspect, that would make sense, because the secondary lock system there in the handle could potentially have remained locked. You know, it's kind of like twist the knob, go out, and you'd have to check that lock mechanism to make sure. Right. But if it's open and it's left open, Okay. Well, then that begs the question, why didn't you, if you got to the front porch, why didn't you just open it up and go in? See, it creates a whole nother avenue of thought process for those who last saw her alive. And that's just the conversation that you have to have. You have to have an honest conversation about, who's the last person to see her alive. And then who was the first person that started looking for her. Now, I'm not saying they're involved. Don't misunderstand me.
No, I
I'm
get it.
saying that homicide or investigations 101, you have to answer these questions. Okay. It's like Ted Bundy. Okay. Hey, will you help me? And he's got the cast on. Ted, why'd you wear the cast? Well, it was a ruse. And I knew once I got him close to the car, I could whack him in the head and throw him into the passenger seat that I had removed. Okay, so you had it all set up. Yeah, good to go. Let's go to the next question. So if we're going to focus on the porch for this program tonight, you have a problem with the wreath over on the left. You have a pot in the front. Why didn't they just lodge the front door open as well? They're not going to get caught because they're not worried about it. They're pulling her out of the house. Why not make it convenient for the suspect, not the victim? They're not thinking about the victim. They're not thinking, you know what? I'll prop the back door open to make it easier for her to get out. No, they're making everything easier for them. It's a total, everything's about them. Evident of the fact they spent maybe weeks surveilling this house. The cops are looking back at what are the dates? The 24th and the 11th, right? They want video. I think they want to see cars coming in and out of that neighborhood. I don't think it's about people.
Yeah.
And they want to compare those cars to the flock system that they have there. They want to see those cars tuliping around the town around those hours. Because they can grab all of that camera system. They have it all. I'll guarantee you they have it all right now. Okay. I had a case where recently, for what I do, my day job, for lack of a better term, where it was a pharmacy robbery and they all came through the roof. And they had their car coming into the town, top to bottom, right up to parking across the street. Okay. I mean, the technology today is amazing. So, they may be just keep trying to link the pictures here to say, okay, here's the vehicle. This is what we're looking for.
Do you think they have more video?
Absolutely.
You think so? Yeah, you think so?
I think
That's just my opinion.
That's what I'm asking. Yeah, I think so too. It's just, I don't know.
I mean, and we have to suppose, right? Again, let's just use common sense here. We know something happened on that front porch, possibly. Just because her blood's there doesn't mean it wasn't placed there at some point. Or, okay, now if her saliva is in that asphyxiation that John was talking about down on the tile there, okay, that's definitive evidence that she, put that evidence there. Okay, that she, or did something like that. My theory was early on, and we all talked about it, I'm not going to kick a dead horse, is that she may have tripped over that mantle coming out of her house. And, because they have to hold that door again, they have to be to the right side of her as they're coming out. They can't be to the left side of her because you can't manage the door and manage her at the same time. Okay, so they've got to be to the right side of her. So that would make sense that the blood is on the left side coming out. Okay. So, you got to picture it in your mind, her coming out that front door, it's reversed. Okay. The suspect has to be on her right to get her out the door. Okay. Because now that person, the suspect hypothetically has a right swing door. So he's got to manage that door, just like at your house, Josh. He's got to push that door open, hold it open for her. If she's that frail, which we're hearing that she is.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what
Right?
we hear. Uh-huh.
And now let's say she trips and she falls. Boom. You get a blood pattern like that.
Well, and so here it says the intent was to go out the back until they found her mobility was limited. That's why plans changed and out the front they went. I mean, you know, that makes sense.
Okay.
I sort of feel that way too.
So guess what the suspect, you would find that deadbolt open
Yes.
because you can't run back in the house and lock it.
Unless it's one of those ones you could turn before you.
It's
No,
got a key.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah. I get it. Right.
It's a key. So if that door is locked when the cops get there in the morning, that is a huge red flag.
Now wait a second.
Yeah, you would have to have a key to lock it from the outside. You cannot lock it and shut it at all. Trust me.
Or you go out the back, which is open, closing the door behind you.
Again, you're taking the victim out the front. You've accomplished your goal. You have.
There might be two offenders. One takes her out, door gets closed.
Why would the other guy go out the back door? He's in the car.
To get the car to bring it around the front, perhaps.
So you're pulling her out the front and you're waiting like an Uber?
No, I mean, it's possible that there are two people in the house. Something goes awry. One of them says, I better take her out the front. They're opening the front door. The other one locks it behind, goes out the back, gets the car, brings it around.
And leaves all the back doors open?
I mean, there's no way to explain it because you're right. That's a very smart point about the deadbolt because it adds a whole element of logic that now becomes very complicated.
Well, it's basically who has access to this house with a key.
Yeah, but only an idiot would use a key if they're trying to avoid detection.
Only an idiot would try and hang flowers over a Ring doorbell camera. That's what happened.
Why put on that elaborate outfit only to use a key to exit or leave? I mean, that doesn't make sense.
Well, I don't think they. Well, I don't know.
But you make a very interesting point, Chris, because if you are correct, there is virtually no way to explain this crime without two or more offenders.
You heard it first on the lab.
Love it.
But it's an interesting point. I mean, John, am I correct that
make news, John.
implies a minimum of two or more offenders?
Well, exactly. And the other thing is that the argument I've seen people saying, oh, there was a spare key. The guy on the porch is, if there is a spare key, is not the one handling it. He's got these gloves on. Do you see that? You know, he's got like sausage fingers.
They couldn't handle a key.
Having that sort of dexterity to handle a key. But the question is, and this is we don't know, is did they bother to ask, was the deadbolt locked on the security screen? Because if it's unlocked, okay, then we know how they came out. If it is locked, well, then now we're on two separate paths. Did somebody lock it when they left? And if so, why?
And this is how this would go down. John and I mean, we've done this so much. We'd get together and I'd be like, hey, did you see the front door? And he'd be like, yeah.
Did they even look though? And this is the problem with people who are responding to calls, and they do so in a lackadaisical manner when every possible observation might be of pivotal importance to this investigation. I wonder if anybody's asked that question.
We were the first ones to talk about the brush over the blood. I did it on Nancy Grace. I said it on Nancy Grace. We were the first ones to say, why is the mat still there? Okay. We're the first ones to say, well, why is the doggone
Hawthorne.
wreath hanging there.
I think the mat is still there to this day.
Probably, yeah, it's sitting. I think it probably is.
And the first ones to ask about the affidavit and the Hawthorne thing.
The Hawthorne case, why is this guy interjecting himself, into this? And it's a question. It's not anything else. Okay. Now here's the question, or they heard it tonight, not they, but, other people. Now everybody's going to come up with, oh yeah, I thought of that, 50 years ago. Okay. Well, okay, good for you. But that's not where you heard it. You heard it here first on the lab, because everybody's been staring at this door and they've been looking at the doorbell and the camera. Well, I took a wider view. I didn't take a tunnel vision view. I took a wider view, and I asked myself, and I've had this thought, by the way, for probably 50 days. Okay. And I've just not talked about it. Okay. And I'm thinking, okay, there's 2 lock mechanisms. Josh, zoom in on those lock mechanisms. The next question is, are they one key? Or are they multiple keys?
Well, you can have that. You can do that yourself. Like you can
Right.
decide.
Now, and that's my question. Did Nancy Guthrie have 1 key or 2 keys? That would be a key question, no pun intended, to this whole scenario. And the family should know that.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
you ask the family, where are the keys to the front door? Oh, I have one. Okay. Who else has one? Well, she leaves them in this little jar over here. Fine.
Fine.
Let's go look at them. Okay. And after that door's processed, you walk out there and you make sure that those keys work.
Typically, it would be, like I said, I have this exact screen door, and typically the same key would work for the deadbolt as does the doorknob. But you can change the doorknob lock, or you can change which.
Yeah, it looks like a quick set lock. This, from what I'm looking at here, I'm just taking a guess, but it looks like a quick set deadbolt, and so you can have those keyed together to
Yes.
one key.
Correct.
Do you have 1 key?
Yes.
Okay, so
Same key works for both top, bottom, and
Right.
front door, and the front door, and deadbolt on the front entry door.
okay, so on your door, the bottom handle, the handle piece, okay, do you have to twist the little doodad on the back of it to lock the bottom lock?
Yes.
Okay, so that's pretty standard. Okay, so I'm assuming this probably has. Now, if you don't twist that and you go out, that door remains open if you don't, right? If you don't do that. I could walk up and turn the handle and walk right in.
If I do not turn, yes, correct.
Okay.
But
So-
I can turn it and then close it and walk out.
Yes, right. But you have to manually, consciously decide, I'm going to lock this door behind me.
On my way up, yes.
So here's the question, right? We would all want to know, and the investigators would want to know, and especially, in this case, what was the lock configuration of those 2 locks on the front door? Because you actually have 3 locks, and there may be even a deadbolt on the other side of this door that we can't see.
Yeah, on the entry, obviously I can't tell, but on ours, our entry door has a deadbolt and also a doorknob lock.
See? So you have 4 locks.
4 locks, yes.
All 4 of those locks are in play. Right, John?
Yeah,
Guys?
exactly.
Gary? All 4 of those locks are in play. If any of them, if there's a glitch in any of the conversation about those 4 locks, you're onto something.
But you need a key, yes. And like Lisa says, you need a key to lock when you exit, unless you go out the back.
For the deadbolt, you
The
need a key to lock that deadbolt exiting. Yes.
Yeah.
not the bottom lock mechanism. You can just turn the thing behind you, open it up, go out, and when it closes, it automatically locks, but not the deadbolt. The deadbolt's the red herring here. And that's usually what you catch people slipping up. Okay. Where it's kind of like, so what happened? When we got over here, blah, 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 but, who knows, right? I don't know. Okay. But that would definitely be one of those things where you'd go, huh, all right, I'll just put that in my notebook here or my 2-pound brain, and I'll just, kind of process it as things go on. And you know where I would go with that personally if I was investigating his case? I would take him down the road. I would be like, oh, I could see why you forgot, you didn't see that. Help me understand what you were doing.
It's interesting.
And you let them run. You just, right? Almost like you've just signed up for a deep sea fishing trip. And you just, okay. Oh, no data point on the garage. Oh, the door's propped in the back. And by the time you're done, you have all these, the chum in the water, and then you go like that. Now, this can be for anybody. When they get the suspect in a interview, whoever that person's going to be, it's going to be somebody associated to this house somewhere. They've come across this house and Miss Nancy. I guarantee it at some point, and he's going to be the same personality that Gary has described, Gomer Pyle, dressed up like Ralph Cramden. Okay. And he's not going to remember whether or not he locked the door or kept it open on the way out.
But I don't understand why they would do that if they're going to leave the back doors wide open.
You see, it's one of those things that doesn't look right, doesn't sound right, does it, Josh? DLR.
No, it certainly doesn't.
Yeah. And what else? What are the other anomalies here? Right? Everybody's talked about the card. Okay, fine. We've kind of written that off as it's, standard operating procedure. Okay. For Adult Protective Service to come over, after she's missing. But what are they coming over for? She's missing. That would be my question to the investigator. Hey, what time did you show up and put your card on the wall, on the window here? Oh, well, we had a report. You know what that is? That's a CYA. Right, John?
Yep.
They're just covering their butt. Because
you want to follow up and go, why are you, I can't think of a single instance when we've responded to an adult who has been a walk away or anything like that, where Adult Protective Services would respond without us requesting.
Right.
So who notified them? Why did they rush over there? These are more questions, because this would suggest to me that there might be more history that we need to know about.
Yeah, interesting.
Does any? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
Do any of you think it's confusing that you would show up at a house where there are flower pots holding the back door open and all that, and your interpretation would immediately be that, like, EMS came and took paramedics came and took someone out of the house, and you haven't gotten a call from anybody that we have your mom and she's in the hospital or whatever? Or do you think that that's believable?
No, I mean, look, I can't place myself in a position where I can maybe gauge someone's ability to, accurately assess a situation. I mean, there's always the chance that somebody is going to come believe something ridiculous like that. But
the police believed it. The police believed she was a walk away or something nonviolent happened. It must have been convincing. Why would you prop the doors open with flower pots to be a walk away?
Well, and why would the deputy sheriffs come to that conclusion? Well, the things we don't know are anything about the experience level of the deputies who responded to the scene. If they're new, I can tell you this, that it used to be when you were a new cop, you were working with a training officer for easily 6-7 months. And nowadays, because the personnel levels are so low, that they're kicking cops loose well before they've mastered even a journeyman's ability on the job.
Right.
So we don't know that the deputy who arrived was new, and this is a brand new situation for her or him, and they might think that this makes sense. Whereas you get, a more senior person, and they go, nah, the DLR does not look right. And again, this
Oh,
is
wait, you use that term too, John?
what's that?
You use that term too?
On occasion, I tend to. I also go, "What's wrong with this picture?"
Right.
Um,
Does not
You
look like.
and Chris worked together for quite a while, didn't you?
You picked. It up.
yeah, we
I've known
did.
John
We
since
saw some-
1982.
Since when?
1982 is when I first met John.
Deal,
I was
Lord.
born in
Were you
1985.
even born yet, Josh?
No, I was born at the end of 85.
Oh my God.
Oh
Well,
my God, I already had a year in homicide by then.
oh my God. Well, but there's something that's confusing me. In one part of this conversation, the logic was it would have been easier to take her out the front door than the back, and that was the whole point of potentially going around the front and opening that door. But then in another part of the conversation, John, you're saying, I mean, maybe well, I don't know if you said it. Someone said paramedics would have had an easier time getting her out the front than the back.
Who said
Where the heck? Somebody said in the
I
chat.
don't know about that, because if you're taking her out on a gurney and you're wrestling with those two doors, unless you've got a capability like with a security door, the security screen that up top to actually set the door to remain open.
Right.
It would occur to me that taking her out the back would make more sense, but leaving pots and such, paramedics don't do that.
So
And-
the logic of the blood was in the front because paramedics came, but they took her out the back. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's the whole paramedic could have been taken. And the other thing is had she been removed, the family would have been called.
Yeah, they absolutely. So there's everybody, especially elderly people, but most people have an emergency contact that is contacted when
Right.
somebody ends up in the hospital. Who do you want us to call? Or even if the person's incapable of answering that question, it's on file. So my grandmother, she has, I think 3 people on her list, and they go down whoever they can get a hold of first, is who they contact. So I find it odd that they would think that. I mean, and right here, Tanner says, I don't think the paramedic scenario is crazy. There are only so many options. Between my grandmother and my grandfather who passed away in 2010, he had Parkinson's and dementia, and he used to fall a lot. And he was hauled out of here on many gurneys. I just, and I've just dealt with a lot of paramedics, and I know you guys have as well. That to me, it doesn't seem like a scenario that would pop into my head. I would think that I would question family first, who or a friend. I wouldn't think the hospital.
Okay, so we're going to make more news for you, Josh.
Okay.
All right. Another one I've been holding. Okay. Just for my friends. Okay. Who makes the first 911 call?
I don't know.
Nancy.
With her.
In order for that paramedics to be a scenario,
Oh yeah, okay, I get what you're saying. So in the scenario of, I got you.
see, everybody's answering Annie. No.
Well, the only person that would be
It
able to
would have
call,
been Nancy.
yeah, she'd be the only person that would be able to call.
That's why they're holding back the 911 call. It didn't happen.
Interesting. Very interesting.
The disconnection of the pacemaker doesn't alert medically. Yeah. So
2 o'clock in the morning, you're 84 years old. You can't breathe. You can't something. You're bleeding, all this other stuff. 911, what's your emergency? Hi, my name's Nancy Guthrie. Okay, yes, I see your address right up here on the CAD here. Just a second, Miss Guthrie, what's going on? All right. Okay, you can't breathe. You're bleeding. Okay, where are you, ma'am? I'm in the I'm in the bedroom right now. All right, ma'am. Is there a way to get into your house right now? Are your doors and windows locked? That's what a dispatcher does. That's what they go through. Okay, stay on the phone with me, Miss Guthrie. Well, I know you're scared, and all our dispatchers in here can chime in here. Okay, in the chat. All right, the paramedics are on the way. Don't worry. Okay, I'm going to keep you on the line.
And they'd have likely sent a deputy, Chris.
Yeah, and we've got you're going to have a deputy show up there in a minute for a medical aid. Okay, what happened, dear? Well, I fell out of the bed. Okay, no problem. You're going to hear the fire truck coming up pretty soon. I'll let you know exactly when they're there. Okay, just stay on the line with me. Okay, that's what happens.
Yeah, but hold on. Nobody thinks that there was a paramedic. They only thought that briefly when they saw what they saw when they got there, and then that was disproved, and then they proceeded to the interpretation that they came to
Who, the
next.
cops or the family?
Well, the family made that. They said they had that impression briefly, is my understanding, but then that fell apart.
It went out over the national airways that my sister called me and said, "Well, what happened?"
They called the hospital.
Right.
Yeah.
They thought it, but then they probably were told nobody ever called 911. Never happened. And that was
Annie called the hospital, and Savannah went behind her and called the hospitals.
Right. So until that point,
disproven thing.
What I'm saying is they don't need evidence of a real phone call to think that. They're the family. They made that interpretation, and then it was wrong. Okay. There was no call to 911. Then what? So then
so then you asked the family, how did you get in?
Right.
Well, the back doors were left open, and we assumed there was an emergency, a medical emergency with my mother, and that's why she's gone out the door. Actually, I can tell you that she can't make it as far as the mailbox, so she must have walked away.
Well, they would have looked for proof of those calls for sure.
And again,
right.
Okay, well, what doors did you check? Well, when we got here, the doors were propped open in the back. Okay, where'd you drop her off last night? Well, we hit the garage door at 10:48, and we watched her go inside for a whole 2 minutes. And that's the last time we saw her. All right, no problem. And then what happened? Well, you guys showed up here this morning. By the way, I've already called all the hospitals. I've talked to my sister. She's on the way over here. Okay. And my brother said it's my sister's fault. Okay, no problem. Then what happened?
You're paraphrasing, of course.
Yeah, of course. Of course. All presumption here. Now, that's the story. That's what the world is hearing. And now an investigator comes in and goes, how'd you find the front door? Well, it was locked. Okay. Then what happened? Then what did you do? Well, we ran around the neighborhood. Well, what time did you get here? Around 11. Okay. And then what happened? Well, we called 911. All right. What time do you think you called 911? I don't know, around 12ish, I guess, because it took us a while to look around. All right, no problem. Then what happened? And all of these what happens,
Right.
what do you think happened, all start to not make sense. And then you get this video with home fries on the front porch, grabbing some weeds, okay, rather than smoking it, okay. And
He
he's
might have
trying
done
to
that too. Maureen is convinced that he's high as a kite.
you know, and then you look at the victim risk continuum and you say, okay, well, this victim, and I know everybody hammers me for saying the word okay. And by the way, that is one of the most effective words in an interview because it's called reflective interviewing. For a suspect who has a consciousness of guilt, you sit there. The only way you're going to get them to tell you why they stuck the axe in their grandmother's forehead is to agree with them. And one of the most agreeable words is the word okay. Okay, then what did you do? All right, no problem. What happened then? Okay, I could see why you would do that. You see, and so it's just my habit because I've been doing it forever. And then you get guys like Brandon Wilson where you turn around and you go, okay, is that where you had your knife? Yeah, it was right here, man. Yes, it was right here. Okay, I could see why you would have it available to slaughter a 9-year-old little boy. Okay.
Yeah.
So in this situation, you go, all right, so the door was left open or locked? I can't remember. Oh, well, it was locked. And now you get into a scenario sometimes where, like, let's say somebody's giving you an alibi and they're like, and John's going to know exactly where I'm going here. Yeah, I was at the movie theater. Okay. And then you say, oh, well, then you must have seen the paramedics show up. Now they're in a prisoner's dilemma because they don't know if the paramedics actually showed up or not. And what you did is you just poured chum in the water. No matter what they say, okay, if they say, well, I didn't see the paramedics. Well, then guess what? They could be telling the truth. But if they grab that story and they go, oh yeah, you mean the guy in the front? Yeah, that guy. Oh yeah, and blah, 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 blah. Okay. And then they start telling you this elaborate story and you let them run. Run, kids. Because guess what? The paramedics never even showed up because they were never even there. It was a reverse psychology onto the individual that's lying to you. So in this case, that door, that lock right there, that lock mechanism could be the key, quote unquote, to this whole case. One of them. I still think the garage anomaly is weird. And I think the phone call from Miss Nancy must exist or not exist. And that's probably why when you ask the sheriff, because we've asked him, we've put FOIAs in, we'd like to have a copy of the 911 call. No, we're not releasing that. It's an ongoing investigation. Okay, fine. Then give me the CAD. We asked for the CAD. Well, we're not releasing that either. Okay, so you're holding it back. Interesting. Not a problem. Why? They could at least put the CAD notes. The RP says they got here and they found the back doors propped open and they thought there was a medical event, yada, yada. I mean, let's confirm, let's tie the story up. I mean, it's not rocket science.
And I mean, I completely understand and get what you're saying too. I mean, it makes sense. But I don't know.
And now you tie in the chef to the waiter, as Gary's analogy has been, which has been an amazing analogy, by the way.
Yeah, I saw your standalone on the interview room, and anybody that's not subscribed to the interview room that's here, please go over there and subscribe. They really are leading the way in this discussion, and it's phenomenal what you guys' think tanks and the people that you have over there.
Well, you have to think out of the box. And by the way, I could be wrong. I'm the first one to tell you on this channel, 100%, I could be wrong. However, a good investigator on the other side of that coin needs to cross those T's and dot those I's. And that doorknob that you're looking at right now is the first time I've discussed it on YouTube. And so that means John and I would be behind the scenes going, do you think this is a problem? If they say, yeah, we got there and the front door was locked. You see, that's the problem.
Well, the scary thing is if they go, we don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the thing. I mean, I hope, I pray that somebody took a solid and look at the condition of the locks on those doors. But at this point, we don't know. I mean, if the doormat is still there, I would have some concerns that
somebody said that it's not, but I don't know if it is or if it isn't. But it was there. It was there pretty recent.
Well, the fact was it was never collected, and as I said on the interview room, if it was my scene, I'd have seized that security door and the front door. Those would have gone. I mean, I would have taken those. Oh yeah, I'd have taken them. I would
take them to the crime lab
as evidence, because we know we can. All right, I won't say we know. Let's be precise. We can infer that a suspect was in close physical proximity to that door. We can therefore infer that perhaps breath deposited DNA on the door. Okay, and all of the doors. And so instead of trying to mess with them there at the scene, you seize them. I mean, I've been in homicide scenes where I've taken sections of walls out. I mean, just cut it up. Let's get all the bullet holes in one section of the wall. This would be easier. You just undo the doors and you take them with you. But as Chris has said, you've got to be willing to look sufficiently outside the box. You have to be imaginative, and you have to understand.
Well, they took everything off that front porch then.
Well, of course, they should have taken everything. For starters, that porch should have been sealed off.
Correct.
With plastic.
But isn't it a problem that in this period when the son-in-law and the wife went there to inspect and then thought that she had perhaps been taken by paramedics or whatever, aren't they then, in theory, interrupting a crime scene, touching the front door, opening it, leaving hair, leaving whatever? Or is the idea that it doesn't matter because
conceivably they don't know. They don't know it's a crime scene.
No, I know that, but doesn't it affect evidence?
Well, of course it would affect evidence, but not materially, because we know that their trace evidence would be there in any event. They're frequently at the house.
Would you have taken all the doors that were open?
You bet. I would have taken anything that we could say might have been in contact with
all the pots, all the
take it all.
Take it all.
Right. That's a good point. But when they found that hair, which, by the way, I think, if I'm understanding correctly, is different than the DNA that was sent to. It's not the same DNA necessarily. But anyway,
that's what I understand too.
That hair, don't you think they would have even just visually tried to match it to anybody that was expected to be in that house, a family member, etc.?
Can't do that.
Okay,
there's no way of doing that. You got to put it under a microscope.
So you think that it could very well just turn out to be a hair of somebody who was expected to be there?
It could be any family members.
Yeah. Let me bring that up because somebody asked. Let me bring that up. really quick. So it says, Chris or John, how do we rule out, I guess, is Annie Guthrie or I don't know what's
And son-in-law.
son-in-law. If they're being there, well, you would expect there to be their DNA in that house. I mean, if they're there quite often, it wouldn't be that suspicious. Now, like I said, when I referenced the Dylan Redwine case earlier, the son lived in the house with the father, so they knew that the son's DNA was going to be there. He may have had a nosebleed at one point and bled on the ground. He may have cut himself, cutting up, whittling a stick. I don't know. But the point is, now if there's a substantial amount of DNA that doesn't make sense, that's when you have a problem. A hair really isn't going to do much for you when it comes to the family. But if there is, say, pooling of blood with somebody's, if a family member's pooling of blood, or, God forbid, what else could be DNA, who knows, then you have a problem.
Take the DNA out of the conversation.
Yes.
Okay, completely. Take the DNA out of the conversation. In my head right now, if the DNA comes back to, family member X, Y, or Z, or, family friend Z, Y, and A, the family friend Z, Y, and A would be an interesting conversation. But the other one, okay,
That's right.
it would be much more problematic. And now you can see why the minutia aspect of these things, of these types of investigations, is much more important than any kind of video or any kind of DNA, grab. Because they're going to spend tens of thousands, if not $100,000 in that one lab getting a DNA profile. They're going to spend probably nothing with the feds now, if they're going to send it to Quantico. Okay. But let's hypothesize that it comes back, it's a family member. Then what? Guess what you have at that point? You have an interview.
Oh, with the family member.
That's what you have. So let's just take it off the plate, and let's go back to why I've been saying, just my personal opinion, and with John and others, the very first interviews within the first 48 hours tells you the direction of travel on an investigation this confusing. Okay. And we saw evidence that the sheriff had no idea what he was doing by saying at the podium, this case will be solved by technology. No, it won't. Okay. It will be solved by what you did in that first 10 hours with the RP, with the reporting parties and anybody in that circle around that house, the gardener, the person that stayed in the house behind you, the pool man, the pizza man, the family members, the list just goes on. That is your clarity of focus right away. Okay. It's not about sending it off to the behavior science unit and tell us, what the thought process of this guy is. No, that thought process could be right in front of you.
Right.
And you don't go to Virginia when you're in Arizona. You stay in Arizona. Okay. And you process these interviews, and these simple things like this. Okay. Well, how did you find the house when you got here? Well, the front door was left open. Really? Did that surprise you? What were you feeling when you found that open? Because now that could lead you into, well, we thought mom had a medical event. Okay. And this is why I've always been, I wanted to know pattern of life on the siblings and the family in terms of, okay, so the night before you drove her up the side driveway. Yes, I did. Okay, did you have the app, or does your mom have the app? Well, I have it on my phone. Okay, we'll get that data point. I hate to tell you this, but I need to get your phone. Now? Absolutely. Right now? Yes. You want to help find your mom, right? Oh, absolutely. Okay. Put it in this bag.
And these are conversations that you've had with people.
Oh, this is what you do.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, this is a no-brainer. This
Right.
is an absolute no-brainer. When you pull up and the the patrol guys say, "Hey, here's the anomalies. The back door's open. There's blood on the porch." They think it's a medical event. I call dispatch. They said we weren't dispatched out here. Yada, and you just go down the list. And when you get into the bedroom, it looks like there was a struggle. You say, "Okay, good to go. Where's your witnesses?" They're over there. Awesome. Hey, you, yeah, you, yeah. Okay, we're going to take you downtown, separate cars. But this is my wife. I know, I understand, but you want to find your mother, right?
Yeah, we need to lock you. Well, you wouldn't say I need to lock you down, but
Yeah.
what you want to do is remove them from their area of comfort into an area where you are, the subtext is that they're no longer in control, if you will, of the situation, and then you lock them down on a statement. And you ask hard questions, and Chris has just nailed it. Every time you get a response like, well, why do you need to know that? Well, do you suspect me? And you say things like, no, I'm simply asking you questions that a defense attorney will ask you when we find the actual offender, because, we need to eliminate you as a suspect. And yeah, and you do this with all the witnesses. And the reason why you video is that you're also going to be studying for body language and times where you're seeing them turning away from you, and you can't do that during the interview because you're trying to get the information. So this is stuff you don't let them stay at the scene, and you don't interview them together.
Yeah, that makes a
And
lot of sense.
and we know what happened and we know they didn't do that because she's on the phone with her sister in New York and saying it's chaos over here. The cops are here. So it's chaos for who? The investigators? Are they in chaos over there? Is that who she was talking about? That the police don't know what they're doing? I mean, even that was her description or something like that to her sister. So she's projecting the reflection of what's taking place around her.
Yeah. Right.
All right. So what's going on with that piece of the puzzle? And it just seems like there was a lot of, this is Miss Nancy Guthrie, Savannah's mom. For us, and for me, I'd be like, and is she missing?
Exactly.
Is she missing? Yeah. Okay, so what does that have to do with anything?
Yeah,
Instead
it sounds like it was a Chernobyl fire drill there.
yeah,
It really did, from how they were describing it.
Nancy will give me Savannah will give me a hug when I solve this thing. Right now, let's solve it. Let's move on. Things to do. And when she showed up, okay, or the senator or whoever, if he calls me, I'm going to say, I'm not going to compromise the case. Thank you so much for your concern, Senator Kelly. Go bring donuts and coffee to the rest of the guys.
No cream.
Click. Whoa, President Trump was involved too. I don't care. President Trump's in Washington, D.C. Have him get on another flight, and we'll talk about the peanuts that he had on Air Force One. Goodbye. Click.
Stay out of the way.
Yeah, stay out of the way. It's my case. This is people will, fictional, we've talked about this. Fictional detectives are they're portrayed incorrectly. Basically, we are arrogant to the point of we could be fairly accused of egomania at times. But if it's my murder case, I don't want any verbal or visual input from you unless you're another detective working the case. If you're a politician, just stay away. Okay? Do I come into your office and tell you how to misuse public funds? Leave me alone and let me solve the case. And so this is,
That's funny.
and so at times you'll hear Chris or I, and we will just talk about, it's my case. Well, that's because we have a proprietary interest in it.
Speaking of
And-
mis-
What?
go ahead, John. Sorry.
No, I'm actually done.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I was gonna say, speaking of misusing funds, one time there was a government funded program that was studying why mountain lions can run up hills so fast.
Oh, I'm glad to know that my tax dollars were spent on that.
$300,000 grant for that. I remember reading that and going, "Holy crap, that was impressive." Let's get to some of these questions, and because I've had you guys here for quite a while, and I appreciate it. And,
Hey, by the way, there was just a study, Josh. You know what's the most popular type of format on YouTube now? Long format.
Yeah, like this.
Yeah, because what the the fan base and our channel folks and all of our friends, we're actually developing friendships with people, and they love to go out through the day or get in the car, and they're listening to the long formats more so than the 15, 20-minute videos. There was just a whole study on it from Google.
Yeah, and I honestly, a lot of our shows have sort of always kind of been like that long form conversations, and I know that I appreciate them, and they always sort of take on a life of their own when you have great panel guests, especially like you guys and
Well, it doesn't. And John and I were both hostage negotiators, so we can talk for days. Not as long as Gary, but we can get close. Okay.
And we are convincing liars because we're the guys who would tell the guy in the house, "No, you aren't going to go to jail if you come out." And they would be, and then when they'd come out and they'd have more chains on them than the ghost of Jacob Marley. And they'd look at us and go, "You lied to me." Go figure.
We saved your life.
Yeah, we saved lives here.
by the way, if you have not, please go ahead. Somebody earlier said that they had just purchased your latest book, and they are you're one of a kind. I can tell you that they're unbelievable. I need to get
That's
mine
what my
signed.
bosses thought, but they didn't think that in an admiring way.
All right, so right here it says Astria Forensics work with the FBI, can get DNA from rootless hair, and I guess that's the one in Florida. I don't think the perp was there 41 minutes. Timeline is suspicious. I mean, I think that the point of that is, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, maybe they could have just been hanging around for that long. Maybe they weren't inside the whole time. Is that possible?
It's certainly anything's possible. And in fact, it's even possible that the time elements we've been given bear no relation to what happened.
Yeah. So what? I don't know who it was on your show, but I was walking the other night listening to the interview room, and maybe it was Bob who was saying that giving an exact timeline was a mistake.
Yeah.
And and I never thought of that, and I completely agreed with it because he is, Nonads, as Chris has so well coined him, has bound himself to a timeline now, and that it probably you could give approximates.
Should
But
have never been shared, because here's going to be the question. Let's just say that the timeline changes.
Yeah.
And this goes to a trial. And here's the question the defense attorney will ask. Were you lying then, or are you lying now?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and by the way, it was somebody in my chat that came up with nonads. I just thought it was
Yeah.
really hysterical, and
Yeah, but you've commandeered it and it's yours now.
I have grabbed onto it. But whoever you are, if you're in the chat, you get full credit for it.
No, Nat.
1,000%.
The other night, there's somebody that comes into my chat and they have changed their name to Sheriff Nonads, and they make all kinds of like funny little remarks, like I have my newest and best investigator on this case and stuff like that. Just saying, asinine stuff, or who does this guy think he is trying to solve this crime? It's pretty funny. All right, I used to also have a guy when we were talking about the Summer Wells case, somebody that when Don would get pissed off at us, Don Wells, the father of Summer, they called it Don's ulcer, and they would write, "I'm getting flared up tonight," which I always found great too. The FBI DNA lab doesn't currently have the ability to generate an SNP profile needed for IgG only SCR. I don't know what any of that means.
Snap.
Got it. Okay.
Investigative genetic genealogy. STR is just the strand. Go ahead.
That's most likely why to the DLT first. The FBI will send it to Astria Forensics. They are the experts on rootless hair. The fact that there's experts on rootless hair. And NJ, thank you so much. Fantastic Four. Glad to catch this live tonight. Does the FBI have any recourse if Nano says no thanks? I don't think they do they?
Unless they can find a federal nexus.
Yeah.
And Tuna said, let's take some calls, but we got talking, and so we'll have to do that.
Dog, how are you?
We'll have to do that next time. The ransom notes are so weird. John and Chris, would you give some examples of ransom notes you have seen or heard of in other cases, and how do they compare? Have you guys ever had a ransom situation?
Nope.
They're very rare. Dr. Gary, I mean, you know this.
Yeah, that is how rare this crime is. I've never seen a ransom note. How about you, Chris? I mean, talking about during
Your
our
own case.
work, our own cases, never seen one.
Yeah, I can't say I off the top of my mind that's jumping anything to me. I mean, we've had ransom demands. I've had demands, in hostage situations where, you got 2 hours or else, blah, blah, blah. So we had a lot of that, but I can't think of something. I mean, bank robberies, yeah, they would get, notes and that kind of stuff, but then we just handed over to the feds. We just usually responded and said, that's your problem. Have a good day.
All right. So let me see. I came in late. Curious if you cover the Lynette Hooker. We talked about Lynette at the very beginning. That story is really just starting to develop. It's a, as you guys would say, does not look right situation, but there is nothing yet that I'm telling you, if they can find her, if they find her body and they can find some sort of, infliction that is not natural, they probably have a case. But without a body and without that, these are tough cases to prosecute, man.
If they do find it, I'm not going to be gross, but I'm going to kind of be gross. Guess what will be missing right away?
What?
Have you seen The Birds? The movie Alfred Hitchcock, The Birds?
Yeah, a long time ago.
There you go.
It's the soft tissue.
Yeah, no question about that. And they're, those are shark infested waters, unfortunately.
In fact, there's a chapter in my forthcoming book about that sort of drowning victim.
So I went to with Danny. We were in the ME's office.
Oh.
And Gary's going to say, oh, these guys got a sick humor. But
Gary's going to say that.
There's a reason for it because he's analyzed this a long time ago. And we get there and the doc says, yeah, he's in the stinker room. because he was. And we got mask on. And I look over and Danny's like that. And I lifted the mask off and he goes, I only have eyes for you. I'm thinking,
Gary, can you sing that song for us?
I'm like, you're a sick puppy. And we put the mask back on.
So yeah, anyway, we did discuss that. And like I said, that's a developing case that is getting some major attention. And but you know, like I said, it's one of those cases where you're really gonna need a body and
Some luck.
Huh?
Some luck.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you're right on that one. Give Chris and John 1 hour in the war room. This one's done.
Amen.
Hard to say any
We
different.
try anyway.
It took her out the front door because he heard the neighbor's dog barking out back, had to exit with Nancy a different way. Maybe there was some suspected activity that maybe drew them out the front. I mean, that's a possibility. She left the doors unlocked came from Banfield. I wonder if that was really the prop door story. Banfield got it wrong. It's possible. Still don't get what's going on with the plants. Nothing. I don't think anything personally. I think he's just trying to hang them up over the door and that's it.
Block the lens.
What's that?
He was trying to block the lens.
Yeah, that's he used the lantana plant as a noose to pull off the camera. I don't know. I think he just ripped it off with his hands. The dog was barking in the back, so that's one of the consensus that and a neighbor did say that night that the neighbor did say that their dog was barking, which would make sense because there's people in the neighborhood. I mean, dogs do that. I mean, I know Macho does. He's a psycho if there's somebody out front, even next door. You know, they can sense that. They can hear things that we can't. So he fully locked the front doors, leaving with Nancy bleeding. What's one we discussed, but I don't know.
No. Love Jenna.
Yeah.
That's a great point because that's what we're saying here. You're right.
And 99 Pink Balloons and Leticia Hernandez, never forget that face. One creator believes a very close neighbor is involved, would not have needed a car. I think even, you know, those houses are so spread out, you know, there's a lot of, I think you just need a car. He had pictures and a name as well as the path taken. Well, that's, I don't know how close of a neighbor you're talking about, but I think everybody on this panel agrees that it's a local, or at least that's where this originated. You know, somebody familiar with maybe the area. The intent was to go out the back. Okay, we found that one. And Sun T Shine, thank you. Blood goes from front porch onto gravel in front of house, not on side of house, then stops. Must have pulled the car up to the front door at some point. And I think that's where he was trying to get rid of the camera. I think that's when that happened. The man points to his wrists after he picks vegetation. He nods sort of to someone. I don't know. It's hard to tell what that guy's doing. He, like Dr. Gary says, he's really nonchalant about the whole thing. He seems way too comfortable, right, Dr. Gary? Is that how you feel about that? Yeah. Are you all right there? Are you hanging in?
Yeah, just
okay.
It's 1 a.m. and we got to get up.
I understand. We're finishing up here.
Yeah.
I've never seen Dr. Gary crash out on me before. This is a first. All right. Would the FBI know for sure by now if Nancy Guthrie never made it home from Annie Tomas's house? I would think. I mean, I don't know. What do you think, John?
But how would you know? You don't know. But the presumption would be that she must have made it home because there's blood on the porch. So, you know.
Yeah, so helpful when it's broken down and explained. Brilliant. And I'm Canadian, watching in disbelief. Excellent show. Thank you. And Gwen's a member for 42 months. Appreciate it. The adult services person was the insider connection. Yeah, that has I mean, that does is sort of weird. I would agree, but I don't know if I agree with that or not. I think there was an insider. I think that there were too many things, too many lapses for somebody to not know that all those lapses in, the safeguards. Nobody's going to go in there blind like that. I just don't think so personally. The perp has a key look at when he was first obstructing the camera. He's turning the lock at the same time. They left the door unlocked, or from habit locked it again. It's an interesting theory. I mean, I'm sure that people do believe that maybe the perp had a key, and that was a great conversation about that as well. I want to tell you guys, thank you so much. Everybody, thank you for the support. Dr. Gary, thank you for joining us as well. You did awesome on Enton, and then your guys' show yesterday, John and Chris. You guys, I'm really appreciative that you guys come on here and entertain the lab rats with your knowledge. It's awesome, Chris. Like I said, we've been doing this a long time now, 5 years.
A couple weekends.
A couple weekends. We're starting to go. We haven't been friends as long as you and John, but we'll get there, right? I mean, we'll get there. Dr. Gary, I appreciate you as well. And if you have not, please pick up a copy of The New Evil, Dr. Gary. What's a bestseller? I mean, what are you going to say?
It's number one. It's number one again today.
Number one again today. Goodness.
Yeah.
I
It's
see
a great
that.
read. If you have an interest in this field, you need to pick up basic an understanding, and it's Homicide 101. You need to read this book.
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate
it's something special, that's for sure.
So let's take a guess real fast. I just saw Gary's thing about summer.
Uh-huh.
Did you see that, Josh?
Yeah, I heard a little something about it.
What's going on with that?
It's kind of not. I don't.
Josie, the older brother.
There's a question mark behind the. It's a little clickbaitish.
Okay.
You haven't.
I don't. I know, but I know the source that it comes from.
Okay.
I've dealt with this bullshit before.
Okay.
No offense. I just.
But which sibling is it?
It would be the oldest boy.
Oh.
It'd be Josie.
But I don't know if that's going to happen or not. So
the poll is he going to?
He's just asking a question. He doesn't know.
Well, if it's learned behavior, like Don's other son, who's a registered RSO in Utah, don't hold your breath.
Yeah, did you click it open?
No.
Okay, yeah. You'll know, you'll see who it is, and you'll kind of go,
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not.
I don't know anything about that. I only know that someone sent it to me as interesting.
Yeah, that's sort of the point, is to get the, it's happened before, and so I don't buy it. But all right, guys. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. And Chris, you got a show Sunday? Oh, wait. John, tell us where we can get your book, and tell us what you're working on as well.
Okay, real quickly, the books are available on Amazon. There's Service with a Sneer, and then Beach Blanket Bedlam, and it's looking like next month we'll be releasing the book called Bring Out Your Dead, which will feature my time working in homicide and then major violent felony crime. So there's a essay series, and there is gallows humor in it, but at the same time, it also tells you how we solved homicides without DNA.
And these are all true stories in these books.
Oh, these are all true stories.
Yeah.
They're my experience, my experiences. And Chris will make the next book, will be in it. But, I've described a variety of scenes. And in the first two books, there is some cruel humor and some violence. So if you have like a coexist bumper sticker on your car, probably you want to avoid these books. They're going to be probably not your cup of tea. But if you want to know what cop work was like from the late 70s on, that would be a place in California. So anyway, thanks for having me on.
Coexist. That's too funny, man.
John is hysterical.
He cracks
Buy
me up.
his books. Trust me.
And by the way, John, my Giants, and I'll message you tomorrow. My Giants are playing your Nationals tomorrow, and we're gonna lose definitely. But man,
This is the last time they were meaningful. 2019.
guys, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate
Good
it.
night.
Good night.
Aloha.
Good night, guys. All right. Well, what a treat to have that conversation with those guys. They're awesome. And I can't wait to have them back. I believe Sunday, Chris has another show. We will reconvene then. And if you have not, please subscribe. It's very appreciated. And thank you for the support and showing up. And we will catch you next time. Thanks, guys.